Good night, good night, good night, good night to all of the viewers. Very happy to be here. Yet another Thursday, Alternate Views. I am Kemar Stewart, your host, and this afternoon we'll be discussing homelessness and the impact of being homeless on the Barbados economy. We're more sure we'll take it regional and international as well. But first, let us welcome you. Thank you again for tuning in. My name is Kemar Short once more. Today is Thursday, the 22nd of February, and we are having our 7 p.m. start. So, welcome to Alternate Views, your economic and social roadmap to a better future for Barbados. So, we'll be having Mr. Kemar Saffrey, um, my namesake. We'll be interviewing him this evening. So, first, I want to remind you all to like and share the video. The more of us, uh, the better. So don't forget to like and share alternate views. Let us have a very good discussions. Don't forget to send your questions. Please maintain your respect at all times. Any unscrupulous comments, any comments will be removed as we aim to keep our professional standard of interviewing at alternate views. So thank you once more for tuning in. So far, we're at 21 persons. Last week, just to do a brief recap, we had Chad Williams and we discussed cricket and what his cricketing future will be like, what is the current circumstances in cricket at this moment, and what can be done to help future cricketers and to ensure that Barbados and West Indies have a future in West Indies cricket. So I'm sure the officials, if they listen to Mr. Williams, they could take some good guidance from his comments as an active uh, cricketer playing for Barbados, and eventually we hope that he'll be selected for the West Indies. So we want to give Chad Williams some gratitude for coming on last week, and we're here again for yet another week with a new dynamic guest. I know many of you see him in the media as long as see him on the radio. We see him up there. He runs and he operates the only, I think it's the only shelter in Barbados for the homeless at that size, located on Spray Street, very strong, right opposite the Central Bank of Barbados. I'm sure if you pass there, you will see Mr. Saffrey actively engaging with his clients for the shelter. And tonight we're going to hear all about homelessness from a champion of the cause of homelessness. If I'm very factual here, there are two main outstanding persons championing the cause of homelessness, Mr. Saffrey and Miss Sharon Bellamy. At some point, we have her on the show as well if she says yes. However, tonight we'll be chatting with Mr. Saffrey as he is the more public persona, I would say, uh, and can give us an active analysis of what is happening in the space. It is my observations that there has been an increase in homelessness over the years. And what we want to know on alternative views, how are we managing homelessness as a country? How are we managing homelessness as a society? And how are we managing homelessness as a city, as very strong as the main city impacted by homelessness? So I pass by the Treasury building. I see people right there outside of the building. We're seeing a lot more women being homeless with children on the streets. And we're seeing those numbers increasing. And we're seeing much younger people on the streets as well. So we want to know what's happening there. So Mr. Saffrey, we see him in the background here. He's preparing himself to come on. So we just wanted to give him a moment, and he will signal to us when he's ready, and we broadcast him on the show. But so far, we have 30 of you online. Do not forget to like and share alternate views. Right? So we want to welcome everyone once more. Let's say good night to the audience. We have some persons on as early as 10 minutes to 7. So we want to thank our committed crew this evening. We have Miss Annette Wood. Thank you for tuning on right early, Miss Wood. Good night to you. Square 4, our avid supporter. Welcome to the show, Square 4. Uh, Good night to Emerson Bob from the UK. Thank you. We have our international audience tuned in. We have Marietta Ford. Good night to you, Marietta. Thank you for tuning on to Alternate Views. Square 4 is saying, hit like and share the thumbs up, please. If you hit that like button and share, it makes the show so much better. So let's not forget to hit like and hit share. Let us have a very good discussion with Mr. Saffrey tonight. Good night, Sir Alfred Benjamin. I really like that name. Good night to you. Good night, Pete Ray. Welcome. Happy to have you every Thursday. Happy to have you tonight. Uh, we have some early comments coming in. Uh, Marilyn Pinnock, welcome to you. And Marlene Silly. That is who we see commenting on here this evening. So welcome to you guys. We want to have a very good show again this evening. We have Mr. Kemar Saffrey onto the show. And after we do our basic introduction, we'll then move on to Mr. Saffrey. I want to say a good evening to Mr. Walter Edie over in the US. Good night to you, Mr. Edie. I hope you have a really good show this evening. So, we welcome everyone to the show, and every perspective matters. So, don't be surprised if you hear the neighbor's dog cheering us on this evening, as he usually does. Every voice is important to our conversation. And this evening, we are excited to have and to discuss one of the challenges and opportunities for creating a better future for Barbados. And this evening, we will discuss how we can pave the road and to remove the potholes, basically, and build a roadmap for Barbados where one can have access to a home, right, that is supported by a family. We want to ensure that people do not go to sleep hungry. That if you go to sleep hungry, that should be a choice. Um, so questions will be asked tonight. Um, what impact does having a shelter and restaurant do to help the housing situation for the homeless? What does it do to ensure that the homeless are fed? And on alternative views tonight, we'll be having those discussions with Mr. Saffrey. So again, everyone is welcome on Alternate Views, the economic show. This is purely and strictly economics, not so much political, but we do take political questions. We don't hide. We want to encourage diverse perspectives as to how we can paint this road towards a brighter future for the Caribbean, and how we can help those persons who may be in need, as we go on to highlight both the economic and the social issues impacting on this country. So unemployment rates, education systems, how we can bring innovative solutions that can drive positive change in the country. And we hope that by engaging in this dialogue together on alternate views, we can gain a very viable insight into creating a more sustainable and prosperous future for all citizens in the country. Uh, and we will talk about it tonight. So let me welcome our guest. You see him here. I'm all excited to get on. That means he has some very good conversation for us tonight. So let us welcome him in. Uh, Good night to you, Mr. Kemar Saffrey, President of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness. Welcome to Alternate Views. We both are not strangers to each other. We talk shows before. We've been joint panelists on
Mm.
television shows before. We had shows going as far as VC3 TV in St. Vincent. At one point in time, we went up to having 20,000 viewers per night when we did our show. So this is nothing new. That's just a different format. But welcome to Alternative Views, sir. Happy to have you.
Hey, Kemar. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here on Alternate View. Good night to your listeners, and as you said it correctly, no, no strangers to each other, no strangers to being co-hosts of a very dynamic show. Soon to be back, soon to be back. But yeah, we're no strangers to each other, and I'm happy to be here, and also happy to be with your viewers as well.
So, for those persons who may not know Kemar Saffrey and those persons who may not know the work you do, could you give us an introduction of yourself to the panel and for future viewers so that they understand who's the man speaking to them tonight?
Yeah, for sure. Most persons, well, let me start with debunking the myth. Most persons would associate myself, and sorry, and the organization as like a feeding group. We are not a feeding group. We are an established organization set up to rehabilitate and reintegrate homeless persons into mainstream society. And I want that. I saw what you see what your comment here, um, saying will pay close attention, and this is important because I want persons to understand. Our focus is on the rehabilitation and the reintegration of persons into mainstream society. So, in essence, our shelter takes persons off the street and we assess them. We provide counseling, we provide mentorship, we provide jobs, church educational programs, family connected, unite, we're connecting them with their families. Whatever the client needs, we bring in. We have a fully functional clinic that is assisted by, to, well, covered by Ross University and urgent care. They're not mobile anymore. And so there's a number of services that we cater to the homeless with. And the whole idea is that we want to take them from point A to point B or A to Z. And whatever their needs are in between there, we are going to facilitate to get them into mainstream society. Yes, we have a component of feeding because that is a way of capturing the homeless. But at the same time, the whole idea is moving them back into mainstream society. So I wanted to really let Barbadians understand that, and the international viewers, that that is the focus of the organization.
Well, thank you for that disclaimer slash introduction. Um, I wanted to start here. We have some dignitaries online the stream. Mr. Ronald Jones, the former Minister of Education. So we want to welcome you, Mr. Ronald Jones. We are very happy to have you on Alternate Views. Uh, you have some more greetings coming in here. Mrs. Saffrey, Square for saying good night to you.
Good night.
Uh, Gail Biz is saying good night to you as well. And Tyrone Nurse is saying good night from Calgary, Alberta. So it seems Alternate Views is going over and abroad. We have guests from the UK, Canada, and the US. And we have the former director of the National Peace Program, Akil Daly. So we wanted to welcome Akil Daly on as well. The show is definitely garnering some interest tonight, and we want to welcome those very interesting guests. Don't forget to ask your questions along the way. We do take questions. So yeah, let us have a good show. So Mr. Safri, we have an initial comment here coming in from WhatsApp, and it made some observations, and we ask you to comment after it is right. It's saying here there are a few factors that have contributed to the recent increase in homelessness in Barbados. One major change has been the rapid urbanization of the country, with many people moving from rural communities and villages to the cities, and particularly Bridgetown, in search of better job opportunities and a higher standard of living. This migration has led to a significant gap between those who are able to afford housing in urban areas and those who cannot. As a result, there has been an increase in poverty among marginalized groups, leading to more individuals and families becoming homeless. Another contributing factor is the lack of affordable housing options for low income earners, with rising property prices and limited government assistance programs. Many people are simply unable to find suitable accommodation within their budgets. What do you think about that comment?
Um, I could agree somewhat. I think that the Bridgetown, St. Michael, Christchurch area, these urban areas, especially these two particular parishes, have always been filled with people. I find that as there's a fire, if there's some sort of tragedy in any way, that we tend to put people in the Christchurch and the St. Michael area. And that can stem from the fact that that is where most of the housing areas are in terms of the housing scheme. That is where you may find affordable, well, it might believe there are affordable houses outside of Christchurch and St. Michael. But I find that a lot of people are coming into these areas, not necessarily just to find jobs or just to find suitable living condition, because some of the conditions in the St. Michael area and the Christchurch area that I have seen is ridiculous in terms of living condition, especially room to rent. That is mostly from the Indian community. Those are not places that I would send anybody, because some of these places are not fit for purpose. All right, they are basically room house that somebody put 20 rooms in and are renting them at $200, $225 a week. So I find that to be the challenge. So I find that we've always had an issue with St. Michael and Christchurch being seriously populated. We do find that people do come to town because it's easy accessible to stuff, food, the welfare assistance, and other means. So there are in the Bridgetown area. In the show, I will highlight what is the main cause of homelessness when it comes to these things. But that is what the trend that we are seeing currently, Kemar.
Well, that's very interesting. Um, the comment led me to think about something as well. Um, as a real estate, well, I'm no real estate agent, and my focus would be finding housing for people of various income levels. And part of my participation in the city of Bridgetown, I recognize that these areas are heavily populated. Sometimes you have many generations of families living in a one bedroom, sometimes just a two bedroom. And as the kids get older, you will have like 20 and 25 people living in um, a very small space, right? There are city communities, so issues of domestic violence do come up, uh, drug use, and other traumatic events happening within families that cause separation. And then people find themselves out on the streets without assistance. So, in all of that, we have a question here. Sorry. Remember, you have the option to take or to not take. But after a queue, we have a girl-based asking if the government assistance towards your efforts in homelessness. My 2 cents, I know that your organization is mainly private and not public, and it's run by a board. It's not a government institution per se, but you're the man. So let me let you uh, give your statement.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the question. Definitely, we are a private entity. We are not owned or run by the government. We are subsidized by the government. So we do have a $250,000 grant, which is given to us by the government, and this helps with our upkeep of the shelter. We have just been approved of a further 250,000. However, we only receive 125,000 of that, and that is to help with the 24-hour operation of the shelter. So let me explain. Uh, Before we were us, you had to come into the shelter. You could come into the shelter from 6 o'clock, and you have, which is 6 p.m., and you have to be out by 8 a.m. And that is because we didn't have adequate staffing. We didn't have the adequate funding to hire more staff and what's not. So we approached the government with a 24-hour proposal that people could actually stay in the building 24 hours. So no longer do a guy have to come in at 6 o'clock and then leave at 8. There is a time to get into the shelter because we have to run with order. So we have everyone is can get into the shelter for 11 o'clock unless you're brought by the police, unless you're going to work and some other reason, within good faith that you were not able to get into the shelter for 11 o'clock. And then you can stay up until the whatever time you want to stay. People do go out and come back in. We provide 3 square meals a day. We have a fully functioning clinic. As I said, we have nurses, doctors, we have programs, we have therapists, we have mental health officers, we have psychiatrists, we have psychologists, and there's a number of things going on in the day, right? So that is something that we do for the clients, and that 24 hour allow us to do it because we don't have to. We don't have the staffing and the necessary things that we need. Um, Somebody asked if the subvention is $250,000 a monthly or a year. It's a yearly grant. It's not a monthly grant, right? So those are the things that we do for the clients as they're doing the 24 hour. And as I said, we've asked the government for additional 250,000 to keep up with the shelter. Now, bear in mind, Kemar and the viewers, that this was 500,000 that we had asked for in previous years, but we would have only gotten 250,000, and then they would have seen the need for the shelter, being that women and children are involved. People, we don't have the staffing, so if we don't have the staffing, we can't leave people inside the shelter by themselves. So this is where the additional funds came in, and so we were happy, but we did not receive the entire 250,000. I think going forward to this financial year, we will get the 250,000 for 24 hour, and then 250,000 as a subvention, which will bring us to $500,000 a year.
As well, thank you for that. Um, you have another question asked: does the business community subscribe to your ventures? I just wanted to say that I personally attended the launch of your shelter, and it was heavily sponsored by the private sector. There's a lot of philanthropy happening in the private sector as it relates to uh, donations, monetary donations of goods to help assist in the drive, clothing, um, and technical assistance as well in terms of training of staff, volunteering. Because it's not just about money per se; it's much broader than that. And I observed that. So I want you to comment on this particular aspect, but I just wanted to give my opinion on it as to what I saw happening at the time.
Yeah, I must say, listen, I've been doing this here for 15 years, 1 5. And in that 15 years, we were not government funded. I always said it, and I'll always be upfront with people. The first time we as an organization ever received money was when Chris Sinclair was the Minister of Social Care at the time. From there, up until about 2022, if my math is right, we had received no government assistance up until 2022. And it is only when we made that plea that we need to have funding because of the increase in the amount of homeless people, the burden on the organization. We are carrying the heavy mantle, we are carrying the load as it relates to homelessness. Then the government saw it important then to start to give us the first subvention, which was the 250,000, which was last year. And then this will make it our second year receiving the subvention. So all of that time, we were 1,000% being carried by the private sector, to the point where writing proposals and letters, we didn't even have to do that anymore. The mere fact that people saw the work, we show what we were worth. We kept our finances clean and clear. We report when we had to report. We did monitoring evaluation. We did financial reporting. We send our financials to donors and also to corporate affairs. We made sure we were on top of our game. But above all, we did the work, and we are doing the work. And people saw that. And when people saw that, people came and people gave. When we got the building, everything that we needed, we got. People came in and helped. Big businesses came in and helped us. They're still helping us. And so that is how we've been able to survive as an organization, Kemar, and for your viewers, that we've always been supported by the private sector. We've always been supported like people like the Maria Hoda Memorial Trust, the Chefette Restaurant, the Harris Pates, and some of those persons, Barbados Community Foundation. Those are our strong, some of the churches as well. So these are people that are given to us and have kept us, and the government is only now coming on board. This is a very expensive operation. It is not, we all attest that when we start individually helping people, we see how it affects us, and see how it affects our pocket. So imagine that I'm helping 80 persons on a day, and I'm seeing hundreds of people when the year come that are not my family. They're your family. If you stretch your bloodline, they're your relatives somewhat or somewhere, and we are helping them. So it costs a lot. Whether or not somebody's in the building, they have to pay $10,000 in rent. Whether or not somebody's in the building, they have 7 light bills in the building that they have to pay light and power, and they say they don't donate light. So water is, the government doesn't subsidize on water either. We pay almost $4,000 a month in water. So you could understand the expense to running this particular organization and the operation that we run.
For that explanation. But what I wanted to ask now, uh, horses privilege now.
Mhm.
uh, what are the main contributing factors, in your estimation,
Now,
to
oh,
homelessness or the scourge of homelessness in 2024 in Barbados?
let me go back a couple years ago when I first started. The drugs was the number one cause of homelessness. I come out hearing it, from a boy up. When
Which
we
drugs? What type of drugs?
You're talking about hard drug, crack, heroin, cocaine, those kind of drugs, were leading cause. I also tell people that I don't find like cigarette is a drug, but I don't find it becoming a leading cause. Alcohol could be a leading cause as well. It was like the leading cause to a lot of things. What then I found after being in the field for a couple of years longer is that the issue became the family. Now the family is like a tree. I always say, like a tree got many branches. The family in itself contributed to homelessness in so many ways. Family didn't understand somebody with a mental health issue, and they don't understand somebody with a mental health issue. They say, listen, you behaving like a madman, leave the house. Family gang up on each other, they put out each other. Dispute for land, dispute for houses, especially when the grandfather or the grandmother die. Everybody want the house now because that's who held the house together. Who ain't working, game push out. Who's the youngest, game push out. Who ain't got education, game push out. Who got more children, keeping the house. Who's the oldest, keeping the house. You have the elderly that was being abused, are still rather being abused by the family, that they are pushing the elderly on the street. They're keeping their monies, they're pushing them on the street. If you go on the street now, you can see, and I heard the minister made this comment, right? And I tell the minister, never make comments without data. We show the data that over 60% of
Which
the homeless,
minister? Which minister?
Minister Humphrey, we tell the minister over 60% of the homeless on the street are elderly. There's a good 30 to 40% of the elderly of the homeless on the street that have foreign that are Barbadian with foreign accent. Why? Because they're deportees. So the family became the problem, and everything trickled down from the drug for the mental health to the drug and all of the other things I mentioned. We speed up the time to COVID. Now, COVID, in my mind, not data, but in my mind and from my professional expertise, have speed up everything by at least 10 years. So when we see homelessness now, the trend have taken from not only just the family, but side by side, if you want, is where people are being put out of their house due to landlord disputes or due to lack of rental. Most of it is lack of the rent that people are not paying their rent, and people have accumulated high debt in rent from when they were in COVID and refused to pay landlords. Now we have to be fair. Landlords have a lot of the landlords have their income supplemented by rentals. So when people don't pay rent, it affects people. It affects the landlord, and they have to. It's their business. I have to appreciate that, but that have put a burden on the organization, because the number one thing that is needed to fix homelessness in Barbados now is proper mental health facilities and mental care services, along with a housing first solution for Barbados, which we wrote the minister and tell him straight. You need a housing first solution bill. You need an emergency housing solution proposal. We gave him emergency housing proposal. We gave him a socially displaced unit proposal. We gave him a national task force unit on homelessness proposal, and the 24-hour shelter proposal, along with several other proposals that we thought were best to help people.
And to what extent were those proposals recognized uh, by the minister to be implemented? Because it's good to have ideas, but uh, we don't want to ask you to bring stories out of the house, but what we want to understand is to what extent were the proposals recognized from the organization at the level of the ministry.
Well, I mean, the National Task Force Committee that we started a year ago was asked by the minister to make it a cabinet approved committee. We believe that by that gesture that it would be strengthen the organization. However, this is a year now going into a year and plus that we have not seen that formation of the National Task Force Committee that would deal with a lot of the issues that I would have mentioned. I wrote the guidelines, I wrote the entire proposal, have not yet seen it make itself. I think I could have started that within 2 months of having it at the when we had it at the Radissons in last year, 2023. We've written the housing proposal. We've written the socially displaced unit. It's now called the. I'm now seeing the outburst of the resilience unit. We have, other than that, we are seeing the entire proposal being made out in front of us. We have no say in that, but we know we wrote the proposal. We are the emergency housing solution. We are not seeing any emergency housing solution to Barbados as yet. Now, the biggest problem, and I saw with the resilience unit, the biggest problem with government is the slowness in paying people. Contrary, well, the ministers don't say this or government don't say this. It's not a one ministry that makes this boo-boo. It's several ministries that are agencies that these things have to go through that slow down the process. So if a man go get the rent like you, Kemar, from a house, if you go get it by the 30th, if I'm renting from you as an individual, you can get it on the 30th. If you're renting from government, we don't know that can take 3 months. And that is why people don't want to rent the government anything. You understand? Any of their property. But we made a proposal. Come to the real estate agent. I was a real estate agent before. Come to the real estate agents. Come to the property managers. Let us solicit the house. We will buffer for the government and pay the landlords. Well, the government, because you will put up a certain amount, and the government will be able to pay back these persons who can, these real estate agencies or property managers who can wait for money a little longer than the landlords. So the landlords will be paid on time. These are things that we made a suggestion to help us. And here's what, these are things that aren't being done. And I know they can set things take time and they can give the ministry that. But what cannot give the ministry is the time that they are taking, or the government, the time that they are taking, that the multiple people that are suffering on the street. People are calling in advance, Mr. Saffrey, can be homeless 2 weeks from now, a month from now. How can you help? Well, I must admit that some of these homeless cases are the fault of the people. But at the same time, we cannot leave the people on the ground, and we must on the road, and we must facilitate, especially when it comes to women and children. That is my biggest challenge.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, if I'm being fair here,
Mhm.
um, you mentioned a couple of things that I have interesting. One, you could explain to us what is the resilience unit. You spoke to emergency housing situation. Now, on another program, I would have explained to the country this concept of emergency houses. Right? We had the importation of Chinese steel hoses, and we had the importation of hoses from Guyana. But those were for people who were low income, people who had jobs, people who were working, not necessarily jobs for not houses for the homeless. And then on top of that, I heard the same minister that you mentioned speaking about building homeless shelters all around Barbados. And immediately that raised my alarms because I was wondering, well, what's wrong with building housing, straight housing, habitable housing, as opposed to building island-wide shelters? So, what are your thoughts towards the resilience grouping that you spoke about, and what are your thoughts about building homeless shelters all around the island as opposed to the emergency housing concept as was discussed?
No, I don't know the housing. I haven't seen the document on the housing on the National Resilience Unit. However, when I wrote the proposal, it was for a socially displaced unit, which will encompass everyone that find themselves homeless due to fire, natural disaster, homelessness because of family, And what that unit would have done is work with real estate agents, work with property managers, and find housing. The monies that the welfare has for rental would no longer be needed for rental. The welfare will no longer do rentals. They will now go to the units, and these particular, the government could tender to agencies to come in, solicit the homes, and they pay the government, the government will pay them. They could wait longer for the money while the government, and anyone that find themselves homeless is caught in it. It will be like a homeless prevention network. That once the person is homeless due to just these abuse and uh, due to lack of rent and all of these things, can be placed into this into these temporary homes until the person can get back on their feet, but provided a 6 months plan. So don't just put them in the house and then you can't get them out. And the reason why, as well, that we will use the the real estate agents and the property managers, because they don't have to go through the rigorous approach that government have to go through when it comes to putting up people. The problem with government is when they put somebody in the house, they can't get them out. Or we would have seen years ago the girl that broke into the government house and all of a sudden she was given the house. So these are things that you have to do for sure. Thing now, the thing with the shelters, that is not a solution. Shelters are expensive, and we do not see the numbers of the numbers in terms of people using the shelter for us to build all of these shelters. The reason why, there are a lot of issues surrounding why people don't use shelter. There's the fact that we are the only shelter in Barbados that provides shelter for women and children and men. And this is women and children, not disputing that there's a shelter for women that are battered, right? But having multiple shelters is not the solution, because some of the persons have mental health issues. A lot of them do. About 99% of our clients have some level of mental health challenges, and some of them are not fit for facilities. So unless you're asking about what you call like a facility first solution with fixing back the psychiatric hospital and bringing back quarterway and halfway houses, that would be the solution for people with mental health issues. There are some people that want to do now. There are people that play the trade at night, both the men and the women. And you understand what I mean by trade. And those persons that play their trade, they are they don't want to come in because they want to come in at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock after they finish their playing their trade. We can't allow that inside the shelter for many reasons. So there are some blunders in the way. So I don't think but what I could agree on is that we need elderly care facilities around the island, because we only have the Vauxhall as one that I know that person pay. You can't get into geriatric because that is a long waiting list. So we need to help the older people that are on the street, and they're the one that need elderly care facilities, and that is what I would suggest that we work on. That will help. And then I believe also, while I do run a shelter, I have female, I believe that there's a shelter that is needed separately for women and children, because at the end of the day, the where we are is not suitable for children. I don't, having babies in a shelter, people going to school from a shelter, and on top of that, it is the only solution. So Barbadians, bear with us. It is the only solution the person have, and we rather somebody in a shelter down on the street. But the children need a playground. The children need some grass. The children need some recreational therapy. So I believe that we've approached the government for a facility outside of the shelter in Bridgetown to basically look at women and children. You're muted.
Well, well, interesting perspective. We have Minister Kurt Humphrey. Uh, in the comments, he's asking to get on the stream. I know this is your interview. However, we would give the minister. Uh,
I'm free with it.
yeah, yes, just out of courtesy. So we as soon as possible we let the minister on. We get the link over to him. Because I honestly made an error. In what I said, so I'd like to apologize. I said that it was homeless shelters, but it was not. The minister uh, corrected the comment and said that it was elderly facilities. So I just wanted to correct my comment there.
That's fine.
Yes. But what you said, you spoke about elderly facilities as well. And I saw you in the newspaper speaking about elderly pensions, and there should be heavy punishment rolled out for persons who steal from the homeless. And I really like that comment. So I wanted to know uh, what is happening in the space that would cause you to make a statement like that.
Anything that I bring to you and anything that I bring to the public here, I have enough data and statistics to back it up. We have people living on the streets of Barbados. And not only just the streets I was talking about, was making a general statement that these people are robbing these elderly folk. And we know of them. I'm sure the ministry and other agencies related will get calls. And I had a gentleman once living on the street dragging himself. He used to drag himself in Bridgetown. And when you ask you what happened, his brother got his money and give him $20 and keep the rest. Another story, and I mean true story. I had a gentleman living in my shelter there for 3 years. And in the 3 years, we helped him get pension. So we signed up all his documents, get him a bank account, he got pension. In the 3 years, we before the pension, we begged the brother to come. We knew where the brother was. We went, he said, "Look, come and take him home. He needs help." But because his slow approach in terms of walking, we didn't put him out of the building. We kept him for 3 years. When his brother found out that he got shelter pension in a phone call, his brother came for him the next day. And I said to him, "Do you want to go with your brother? Because I believe that your brother here on his own merit, on his own motives, wrong motive." He said, "Yes, let me go with my brother." You know, the next couple of weeks, he turned back up and said his brother
What?
went into his account, took $7,000 and buy a van. So we see these things, but who charging the brother? He came back to me and said, "I want to get back in the shelter because my brother no carry all my money." So these are things that you're seeing as it relates to people taking these people's money. But where are we? What are we doing to arrest the situation and bring these people before the law court that are taking these elderly persons' money and not taking care of them? I personally believe that somebody should be charged. I don't see why, because here's what these persons that when the family take away the money, they're coming at us for shelter. You understand us? You understand me? They're on the streets. We're the one feeding them. We're the one taking care of them. And I don't believe let me debunk. We don't want the person's money. What we want to do is for the family to take care, or we should have more elderly care facilities to take care of the people so that a portion of their um, pension can go towards their rent.
Well, thank you for that comment. We have Minister Kurt Humphrey on the line. He seems to be a bit busy out in the community.
I
Um,
am.
yes, so we want to welcome him on. This was quite organic, unexpected, but we welcome it. So thank you, Minister, for coming on. I didn't know that you listened to alternate views, um, but thank you for
Well,
coming on.
Kemar would like to say that I normally do, but it wouldn't be the truth. Somebody sent me the link, and I was listening, and I just felt there was a need to come and not necessarily clarify anything, but to shed light on the reality of the situation. And it is good, I think, to have these conversations and engage with Barbadians. So here I am.
Thank you
Um,
very much. So you could make whatever comment you wish.
well, first of all, just thanks, Kimar. Both Kimars. I think we have to put this conversation into some perspective, though. There were some points made that I feel we really have to be clear about. Firstly, the last point I will go from the last one I heard in relation to the homeless facilities. We never said that. What we said we were going to do is build, and what we've committed to doing is building elder care facilities over the island in every parish. And if you accept that Barbados has an aging population, in fact, the last census would tell you that over 25% of Barbadians are over 60. The average age in Barbados is 40, mid 40s. At this trajectory, in the next 15, 20 years, the average Barbadian will be almost 60 years old. It is clear to us that we're going to have to build more elder care facilities. Whether we choose to accept that or not, that is the reality facing Barbados. That's the first point. The second point is in relation to the resiliency unit, the resilience and reintegration unit. Now, after ELSA, in fact, prior to ELSA, the government had done a lot of work in relation to dealing with people who had experienced shocks, whether it was fires, whether it was some climatic event, um, especially in the Ministry of, which used to be social transformation, then social care, no people empowerment. This has always been the case. The fact is that it has been a little sporadic, and there was always a need for us to organize and to try to have a unit dedicated toward dealing with this. Since ELSA, the ministry has had a pretty much dedicated unit. This is not new. We had, which were the workers that were previously in what was called PARP, doing most of this reintegration work. In fact, the officers, that's all they do. We then felt it necessary to give it a proper title and a proper mandate and to ensure that we do it properly. Um, to say that one person is responsible for this unit would be misleading. The other point is also this: we were in Japan. Japan has a resilience unit that deals with a lot of these things, and it makes sense to do it. Whether the idea is mine, Saffrey's, Japanese, whether it is the functioning of the ministry for all this time, the reality is that we have to deal with it because of the number of persons who are facing shocks. And so we determined that we had to put ourselves in a position to deal with it. In relation to homelessness um, and having data, it was always my position. I'm a social scientist. If there was a calling program that Saffrey and I were on, and I made the point very clearly that we cannot make any decisions without data, I don't need anybody to tell me that we need to have data. I am a social scientist. I was director of social policy research and planning. That idea to me would be ludicrous. And in fact, the truth is, there's never been any real data. We've had, Saffrey would tell you the number of people who came to his shelter because I asked him for it, the number of persons who came to the shelter. But in terms of the number of persons who are homeless in Barbados, we didn't have that data. And so we did recently a point in time count, the first in Barbados, proper point in time count. We did it in December around 8. We need to do about 3 more to have about 4 so that we could then have an average. So we're going to do it again in another 2-3 months, and then later on in the year, and then one more time in the year to capture the homelessness. And the idea is to find out where they are, what are the reasons for them being there, what are their solutions to their own poverty, and so on, because we believe that people who are in these circumstances have solutions. So that has been the government's approach. In relation to expanding the support to the Homeless Alliance, we did that. In fact, I understand Saffrey's asking, he said he wanted 500,000, we gave 250,000 this year, but we also gave 250,000 prior. We've given $500,000 to the Alliance for Homelessness. $500,000. And, that is nothing for us to scoff at. But we also then lend further support to some of the other agencies who are doing this kind of work. So it is everything, every signal that this government is sending is saying that it is serious about homelessness. Every signal. In relation now to dealing with the people who are homeless and in terms of the amount of people who are becoming homeless, I think Kemar, Saffrey, allow me to say Saffrey because one is Kemar and the other is Kemar, just to differentiate. But Mr. Saffrey would have made the point that we're seeing a lot of family issues causing homelessness. That's true. We're seeing family issues driving people to homelessness. A lot of people being evicted. We saw women and children. But I want to make this point. The government has been moving extremely quickly. Now, if somebody is evicted in the middle of the night, Saffrey's place should be a transitional facility. It was never meant for Saffrey's place to be the place where they go and they stay permanently. It should be a transitional facility. And that is why the reintegration unit, part of its title is reintegration, to be able to move families that have children. Now, it would also be true to say that where we found families with children, we moved with haste to place those children. Like Saffrey would also have to admit to that. There's some cases where parents don't want their children in care, even though the government determined that the situation requires care. So I'm just making the general point that when we look at what this government is doing for homelessness, granted, there's always going to be a case to do more. But when you look at the fact that we've strengthened the lead institution, being Saffrey's institution, we've worked with all the other institutions, including the smaller bodies that deal with it, including Sharon Bellamy, including the Salvation Army. We've done a lot in all these areas. And I would say to you, Kemar Stewart, only because there are 2 Kemars, I would say to you, Mrs. Stewart, that the trajectory that we are on must be one that anybody who's in this business should be able to say, this is a trajectory that makes me proud. No, can we say we've done everything? No, no one has. But in the last few years, we've done more than any other government has done in relation to addressing the issues pertaining to homelessness.
If I could jump in here, Kemar, I just want to respond. I will give the minister that this government have done more in terms of for homelessness than the previous administration, because I can tell you I lived through both. Um, But let me just caution every minister there know I alluded to the how much the government gave us in the beginning. And I don't hide numbers because I always like people to know because you know what people comments are. But I must say this on several items. The it's not a matter when we wrote when we did the point in time count, it was done wrong timing, wrong date, because we did that Christmas in the middle of a cricket match and the timing was wrong. That should have been done at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. We
No, but
let,
with all due respect, Kimar, we're doing four
but
point
hold
in
on,
time count.
I just
One
speak
has
into,
to be in December.
I just speak editor. One was in December. Now we took part in it. We shared the data. We gave the numbers. We gave the spots to where the feeding the we gave the spots to where the persons whatever we shared the information with the government. So I'm just saying that when we do it, we have to look at where we are doing it, how, because oftentimes we have to remember the key players in these things to make these things successful, not just um, from a technocratic point of view, but from the key players, right? So we have to look at that on the end of the money issue of the funds, along with funding. I always say this: the biggest issue to homelessness, and that is why we got a lot of support. This is why we even got support because we was keeping noise for years. Not just because people thought that some people thought that we needed the fund, but we kept noise. We kept the issue of homelessness alive in Barbados so that persons could see that we were doing something. And again, I appreciate the government coming on board and supporting. But above that, the bringing players to the table is the key to solving homelessness. You understand? The key, the stakeholders need to be at the table because interagency support is needed. You understand? Because when some people use the shelter, they're there long. I have women there over a year. There are people that we can get out fast, especially women with children, but there's some that we don't get out fast because the interagency support is not there. The housing solution
When you
not
say
there.
slow down, slow. When you say interagency support, could you elaborate on
Interagency
what?
support would mean that there's a lot of people that don't know that immigration, for example, has a role in homelessness because there are people that are coming to Barbados on one-way tickets that don't have the money to go back to their country. So what happened is that they end up at the shelter because they don't have money for ticket, they don't have money for food. Until they can get a repatriation flight or a family relative can send ticket, that's issue. A woman with a mental health issue or a man with a mental health issue, more likely they cannot go back to their home, can't go back to their families, so they end up in the shelter for a longer period of time too. You understand? Because the interagency relationship is not strong enough. If
So
there's another thing, other part, when somebody goes to psychiatric for detoxing to go to Vernon House for rehabilitation, they don't have a detox facility because they full. They send the person back on the street at a breaking point. When that person come back, when that person they ask us to hold that person, something that person is out of slum. So there's an interagency relationship that only the ministry or only the minister could facilitate,
right,
not
so
just Saffrey.
right, Minister, you care to respond to the idea of the
Well,
interagency support?
well, first of all, the idea of interagency collaboration is an idea that anybody would support, right? I mean, that's an obvious thing. But to say that the lack of interagency support is the primary reason that persons would then be staying by Saffrey, I don't know that I could agree. And here is why. And I must also tell you that we had, and Kemar was present, we had a consultation on, he organized one, then the ministry organized one. And I heard him speak earlier about the task force and he doesn't know where it has gone. He knows, Saffrey knows where it has gone. And we spoke to a number of people, including
You don't want
Kemar,
me to see where you're going, sir. You're going to
including
be,
Kemar, about
you're going to be.
being on the what is, and we're not calling it a task force, but it's a committee on homelessness. And again, this committee, we did a committee on aging, we did a committee on for persons with disabilities, we did a committee for children, we're doing a committee for homelessness. Again, I don't know how any one man could think he could claim these things. You understand? This is government policy. And even if you were to say a task force on homelessness, if you just randomly Google task force, do it now, Kemar Stewart, Google task force on homelessness, and you will see that task force on homelessness are nothing new. They're not the idea of a one person. This
Minister,
is stand. I am going
I
to
can't
finish,
allow
Kimar.
you
I
to
am going
throw
to
hot
finish,
water
Saffrey.
pan
No, no, no. You
somebody
let
to
me,
talk to the
Kimar Stewart.
government.
Please
Hold on,
That,
hold
control,
on,
Mr.
hold on, hold on,
Saffrey.
hold on. All right, hold on, hold on, hold on.
but
Wait,
don't
come
you?
on.
I can't sit down and
Please
laugh with
Wait,
control,
you.
wait,
Mr.
wait, wait, wait,
Saffrey.
wait, 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 fellas, come on,
Please
come on.
control, Mr. Saffrey. He
That
needs.
ludicrous.
He needs
Come
to.
on,
He
come
need.
on.
I let him. I let him
All right,
finish.
go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, yes,
I let
yes,
him
yes.
finish. You need to thicken your skin, my man, if you're going to the public.
All right, wait, wait,
So,
hold on,
so,
hold on, hold
Mrs.
on, hold on.
Mrs.
Respectfully,
Mrs.
Let him
Stewart,
finish.
yeah, I want
Mrs.
just let me
Stewart.
get a moment. Just give me a moment. Just give me one more, please. Right. Uh, each person will have time to comment and to respond. If you feel strongly enough that an error is being made in a comment,
Well, agreed. Kimar, if you feel strongly, you go ahead and you speak.
yes.
You know, listen, I can't allow somebody to say that no one man ain't bring up no idea. That ludicrous. We brought the idea. The point is, what often frustrates me with this system, we bring an idea to government, whether or not the idea was copy and paste. We bring an idea to government. We said, listen, we are dealing with homelessness. This is what we would like to see happen. A national task force committee, we had a meeting. We brought all the players to the table. The ministry and the minister then said, hey, can we be a part? Fine by us. We can I strengthen it by having it as a cabinet approved committee? Fine by us. Right? We didn't stop the committee, but don't throw cold water and say no one man and to Google this or to
So,
Google.
okay.
Yeah,
That
that's not fair. It's not about
I imagine that is the essence of your point.
no.
Okay.
The essence of my
So,
point is that
so,
I'm not
oh
going to
my
allow.
word, Mr. Saffrey,
Okay,
Mr.
okay.
Mr. Stewart.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
fellas. Okay, fellas.
But he
Minister,
is
you
on my
made
show, but go ahead.
yeah, you made your comment, Minister.
So I'm just saying that to say, but I hope you've done what I asked you to do, which is just to do a random Google.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm not saying Saffrey didn't raise the point. He raised the point. But I'm just saying you have to say in the context of us doing a committee on elderly, on children, on disabilities. We've pretty much done a committee to inform government policy on everything. If you're going to do a policy on homelessness, you have to do a committee to inform the policy. That is just standard. Anyways, so in relation now to financing and bringing players to the table and the interagency collaboration, I think that this committee is going to be important. The same committee that Mr. Thakur is laying claim to, I think that committee is going to be important because it is going to be important to bring all these different players to the table. But I would also say to you, when you have a person who has mental health issues, housing is not the solution. If you have a person, because obviously, these things are very complicated. These matters are extremely complex. We have situations where a person could, get the treatment, they go back home, especially if it's drug-induced psychosis. Very quickly, they're back on the street. It's consistent work, consistent work. And Kimar would also tell you that Safri, by the time a person comes to the shelter, normally, or to the ministry, normally, they have frustrated every single family member in their household. They have frustrated their communities because there's normally the first point of contact in terms of a social adjustment, in terms of a social kind of comfort, is normally the family. It's another family member, a community member, a church, but they've often frustrated every single component of the social fabric. So then I say to you that is in those cases that one, we need either to build more facilities because there are points where people have so frustrated the system that the traditional mechanisms of care no longer work for them. And that is why I heard you say, Mrs. Stewart, that there may not be a need to, but there is a need to. Because if it is that the traditional family as we know it is eroding and there are going to be more and more cases of this kind of thing, then there's going to be a need for the government to respond, or you're going to hear what is the government doing. And so, but can I also tell you as I close, because I see Safri itching, can I also tell you as I close, Kimar?
Correct these things.
I can also tell you as I close. I see you there. My philosophy, and I've written a paper on it. This is nothing to do with this conversation. I wrote a paper when I was director of social policy with the staff in the ministry at the time. And I said in that paper that the role of the government in delivering social care is not to be the actual deliverer, but to strengthen the already existing institutions, primarily the NGO sector, to be the best person to deliver it. If we place money with the Alliance to End Homelessness, it is because that is the philosophy that I expressed in a paper I wrote in 2007. When we give money to Jabez House, or if I give money additional monies now to Sir Optimus, or we just started giving to BARC and all these various institutions. It is because the philosophy that I speak of is one where the government is best servant to people by being facilitator and not the direct deliverer of services. Now, if we give you the support, Saffrey says he needs another $250,000, and we do the analysis and he needs it, and we give you the $250,000, then you can't come back in the next breath and say the government isn't doing anything, because the government's position is to facilitate its delivery through your agency and through those agencies. So it is almost bordering on a hypocritical position to say these things. You
But
understand? And it is a
But wait, but
philosophical,
Minister,
it is
hold
a
on,
wait,
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 wait, wait. I never
philosophical.
gave
slow
that
down, slow
indication.
down, slow down, slow down,
I
slow
never
down. I
gave
Mr.
that
Saffrey,
indication.
Mr. Stewart, I
slow
will
down,
let
slow
Mr.
down.
Saffrey speak, because
Yeah, I
clearly
want to
Mr.
interject.
Saffrey is itching.
I
But
want to
no,
interject. Wait,
Kemar,
wait,
hold on. I
wait,
just
wait, wait.
want to
Give me a
correct
moment.
that.
One
Go ahead.
moment. Let's
Mm.
let me interject here. Right,
I need to come back in though.
right.
Go ahead.
I will let you comment after, but just let me
Go ahead.
interject
Go
here.
ahead. Go ahead.
Minister, you are saying that financial assistance, if you give financial assistance, that's fine, that's okay, right? The ministry has allocated, right? Sorry, the ministry has allocated, uh, going by your numbers, at least 500,000, to be able to facilitate a private
Yes.
organization in, uh, you would say, the care of at-risk persons, i.e.,
I would
homeless.
say an NGO that is well respected, that has done good work. I will not
Yes.
disparage Kimar's institution.
Right. It's not a disparaging remark, but we
Yeah.
just say a facility,
That
institution
was
that
not the voice at
facilitates.
all.
Right. On the other
Come
hand,
on now, save the
all right,
threats,
hold on,
Kimar,
guys. Come
man.
on, hold on, guys. Come on, hold on, guys.
That was
Come
not
on,
the
come
voice.
on. All right, let's
You,
let's be
Go ahead.
civil. Let's be
Mm.
civil.
you need not guys,
Let's have
not
fun.
guys, Kimar. You need to address this comment directly to the person who's making the inappropriate comment.
Okay, okay. Let's
If I just
not.
did it,
Right.
go ahead.
Okay, let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. Right. So we're looking at, you're speaking about monetary assistance and one brand, but as someone who's trained in the area of, you say, economics, Mr. Humphrey, your area is social policy. There's something also called technical assistance, right? So my question, from listening to both of you guys, what level of not financial, but what level of technical assistance is being offered to the institutions, not monetary, but technical assistance, to be able to
I somehow
facilitate.
lost the video. You can still see me, Kimar, because I don't know what
Yeah,
you did. Oh,
we're
okay,
still
okay.
seeing you. Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah, yeah.
this is why
Fine.
I spoke to. And if the minister isn't really saying much of anything that I haven't said on this show, probably he should have come in a little earlier, or he may need to give you a show by himself, Kemar, that the social agency collaboration is key. The only person, or the only organization, government agency that can do that is the ministry or the minister. So this is why I'm saying, if you think that $250,000 or $500,000 can fix the issue of homelessness in Barbados, then it should have been fixed years ago before it even needed 500,000. Money doesn't just fix it. We're not disputing the
Oh
fact
my
that
word.
money is not needed. I said that on top of the funds that is needed, the social, because if you're talking about family and mental health, let me tell you something. Where are they going to go? Because after the minister said, yes, the family exhausts the system. When they exhaust their family system and carry the family to the wire, where you think they come in next at the shelter, and then they can carry we to the wire.
Well, they're not only coming to
The
the
money
shelter,
given
Saffrey.
is not to buffer a wire. It's yes, we could hold the person and facilitate the person depending on the condition, but we're after, because many times there's no after. They stay at the shelter. If not the shelter, the streets. So this is where now facilities and programs needed to push forward these people. This is why I even call for the welfare department to be a social and development agency. This is why I call for the psychiatric hospital to now bring back halfway and quarter way house. This is what you call for the National Assistance Board to look at elderly care more, and to look at elderly care on the street, even through the same elderly care services that they provide. This is where you call for the people to be charged now for kicking out old people on the street. This is now where you have to do a emergency housing solution, where you have landlords that can get houses to real estate agents. I've given the solution. I am not here to look at what is going to happen, because I've made things happen in this country by bringing it to the floor and putting it to the minister. If the minister wants to discredit it by saying you ain't the first,
Listen,
Anybody,
listen, listen.
Google this, Google that. That is not the solution.
uh,
My
no,
thing
no,
is,
sir,
Let him finish.
sir.
Let
I
him finish.
believe.
Let him finish. Hold on, mister. Let him finish the point, and
my
then
thing is,
you
bring to
could
the
respond.
table. And here's this. Let me add to this too for the minister. And I've told the minister this, if he wants to out me or anything, that I will not serve on no national committee with people that do not have or is not in the space of homelessness or have not contributed to homelessness in any means to make it a strong committee. I am not a committee boy. I am up on the ground. I'm going to get things done. And I have always been that way. Barbadians should know me by now. So if you're going to ask
And
me to do anything,
Yeah.
bring me to the ground and also respect me, respect my organization, and respect the years I've spent building.
again,
There's underneath even the minister when he was in social development agency could tell you from the time the Dems was in power, there's nobody have stand up for the homelessness in Barbados the way we have. Money does not solve me or does not make me
but
put me
but
different. What we need is a plan going forward to address homelessness. That
and
is what we
and
need.
and that is why the government is doing a policy, Kimar, as you are well aware, to begin to deal with homelessness. That is why we're trying to bring everybody to the table. Look, I ain't coming here to
We
be
all
interested
should.
in no blame
We all
game
should.
and who could do
Every-
this and who can do
Everybody like
that.
who?
And that's not my plan. I came to this ministry for solutions. As it relates to the elderly, Kimar, again, you are well aware that we just finished a policy. You know that the legislation, because you were consultant to the ministry, you know that the legislation is well advanced in relation to the ministry's draft that will soon go before the cabinet and soon be put into legislation. You know this. You know that the legislation for the elderly, for the persons with disabilities, has already been done and is being drafted. You know the child protection policy has already been drafted and it's coming back to cabinet now that the select committee has met on it. So you know these things. If we are talking about real solutions, you know that real solutions are coming. If it is in relation to who serves on the committee at the end of the day, the position was offered to Yuki Mart, it still stands. And
I'm
we
not
offered it to
serving on
many,
no
and I will
committee.
finish.
Hold
We
on,
offered it to many other persons who are on the ground to be able to do this work. But you must also appreciate, Kimar, that when you are bringing a committee, you need a bit of this and a bit of that.
Okay.
You need
Minister,
some
if
people.
you're at liberty to say, could you give us the construct of the committee? What will you be looking at in terms of a vision for the committee?
The committee that we are, and I don't want to get into too much detail because it hasn't gone to cabinet.
Okay.
The first paper that we proposed, we withdrew and we are making amendments to it. But essentially, what the committee would do is to look at based on the social policy that we're doing now to get the homeless policy, what are the causes, where are the gaps, what institutions do we need to build, what are the same interagency collaborations. It is a committee that will help us attend to homelessness. At the end of it, do we need to put more money into these institutions? Do we need to give greater technical support? Do we need to bring in other skills? Do we need to widen our housing policy? It will give us the guidance in relation to the direction forward. But as I said, Kimar Stewart, that the committee has yet to be approved by cabinet, and so I wouldn't want to get into all of it, right? But a lot of the terms and conditions, again, Mr. Saffrey is well aware because when he was consulted to the ministry up until a few months ago, a lot of these conversations were had. And the reality is that we are interested in developing solutions to a number of these problems. I have no interest in coming on a program to talk about papers and statistics. I want to know that one, we put less people on the street when the day comes, that whatever it is that's causing Barbadians to be so moved to evict people so easily, that we've put in place things to be able to address it. What is it? What has happened, particularly post COVID, that any family member that does something in a household is so easily evicted? The Resilience and Reintegration Unit is the first agency in government that has as its mandate to address homelessness. The first. And therefore, part of that will be talking to the people on the street. So you're going to see we're going to have officers who are just assigned to homelessness, talking to the persons on the street, trying to help them figure out, because some people need mental health, some people may need a home, some may just need a conversation with their family, but to be able to move in such a way as to reduce the numbers. Do we need another facility? Himar is proposing that we have one for women and children. I do not know that is the case yet. I will wait for the statistics, but I also know that there are other agencies that have come
Statistics.
forward. Wait, man, there are other agencies that have come forward and have proposed the same thing, who are already agencies that propose, who are already dealing with women. And they too want to be the agency to be able to do the new unit in relation to people who may find themselves on the road with children. I'm just saying, so when we look at, as a government, we do not have the luxury of looking down one lens. So do we build another facility? Perhaps. But I believe the solution is to try to reduce the number of people who are finding themselves homeless. That's the real solution that we need to be able to find. Why is it that people are becoming homeless in Barbados, and how do we prevent it?
He gave
Right.
First
that.
of all.
Hold,
But
hold
That's
on,
when
hold on,
when,
hold on.
Kim-
he gave
when let
that.
me finish this point. Let me finish this point,
Right.
Mrs. Saffrey. You're
Let finish.
anxious.
Okay.
When the other point is those are in relation to people to prevention. Now there has to be any solution to any social problem must have dealing with needs, managing problems, and creating opportunities. So how do we first of all deal with the needs? How do we deal with the problem? We try to stop it. When they're on the street, how do we address that need? Now there are different things that they need. I strongly believe that the government's role, and this is my philosophical position, is not going to change out on the basis of this conversation. If there are agencies that do this kind of work, Mr. Stewart, I believe that the government is best positioned to work through those agencies. That is my fundamental belief in life. The government doesn't have to recreate the wheel. But the fact is that there are different agencies that are coming forward, and we have obviously to work with the various agencies to be able to do this kind of work. That's the other thing. And then lastly, in terms of how do we create opportunity, the unit is called resilience and reintegration to help people get jobs. You know, one thing the ministry is not very good at is touting its own record. Kemar seems to be better at that. But
Right.
the agency has been very good
But
at
we don't,
the
we don't
ministry.
talk about their
The
record.
ministry has just
Right.
finally sent, the ministry has sent at least in the last few years 500 persons who were agents, who were persons associated with welfare for training, working toward putting them in permanent jobs, and so on and so forth. All I'm saying is at the end of the day, we have to have solutions to these problems. If Mr. Saffrey remains genuine about his desire to see a solution to the issues of homelessness, and if the government continues to be serious in its position, I know for sure that the government is, if Mr. Saffrey wants to be and he is, if Mr. Saffrey wants to be the player who currently houses the persons and the government is able, that the reason that we put the money isn't about putting money and trying to stop problems and did it. The reason that we did it is because we were of the view that once we supported Mr. Saffrey's organization, and I believe it makes sense, I still do, that the number of people, particularly the ones who are seen in Bridgetown, Kima would remember that we had this conversation. I said, Safri, when we put this money toward your organization, will we see a reduction in the number of people who are homeless in town? Because the reality is his agency was closed during the day. And the idea was to have a 24-hour facility so that the people would have a place to go during the day. So that is the thinking of the government. Now, if that has to expand, whether it is through Safri's agency or through another agency, if it is genuine solutions that we are looking for, then that is the approach that I believe we have to take. Now, if the homeless policy tells us that we also have to do other things, then there are other things that we're going to have to do. But for now, I believe that the government has done a hell of a lot in relation to addressing the issues pertaining to homelessness. But solutions will require that we all work together to be able to achieve it.
Right. Let
Mr.
me
Stewart.
make wait. Let me make a comment here.
Mhm.
First, I want to take two issues to the comments that you made, Mr. Minister. The first one is you spoke about field officers that are attached to the ministry and putting these field officers to be in the field, be on the ground. My problem with that, and let's be straight and be fair here, um, political persons get these jobs, not persons who necessarily have the background, the experience, or who are actively in the field. Right? We've seen that happening constantly across all ministries of government. Right? Second, um, you say that if you allocate further monies to the homeless shelter, will it result in a decrease of persons being homeless? No, I might not be a person actively involved in social work, but I know that it, having a shelter just will not reduce homelessness in itself. The same support agencies, you need to have job creation to ensure that these persons have employment, they have skills. So the persons who are not educated, find a way to get them educated again and reintegrated back into the system, housing solutions again, and finding other structural problems to help address the issue of homelessness. I don't believe just putting people in a shelter and giving the shelter money will solve the problem of homelessness, right? So that's my two comments.
Well, I suspect that neither Saffron nor myself is saying what you just said, though. The latter point you made, that we think, either of us think that putting money is going to solve homelessness. But the fact is that there's some people who are homeless and need to be housed. But homeless is a complicated problem, and I don't think any either the two of us is making that point. But in relation to your first point, that only political people get these jobs. Now, Kimar, no, you're just talking to, because the truth is, it is difficult for you to be able to even begin to prove that. In our ministry, the persons that we've hired to be able to do a lot of this work, the persons that we've brought on to be able to do a lot of this work are people who are actually doing the work. That's the reason I wanted Safri in the first place, because the people who are on the ground are going to
You know
help give
what, me
us some of
minister,
these.
don't lie.
That's why I wanted you in the
Don't
first
lie.
place.
Don't lie.
The persons who are doing that kind of work.
Don't lie.
And Kimar, look, I am not even going to go down in that dirt
Don't
hole
lie.
with you,
Stick
Don't
to
because
the
lie.
stick
clearly
to the
Don't
hold
lie.
on,
I
hold
can
on,
make
hold
my
on. Stick
comment.
to the
Don't lie.
right.
Continue, but don't lie.
Stick to the facts. Stick
it,
to the
it
facts, fellas. Stick to the facts.
well, but so Safri, yeah, let me stick to the facts, Mr. Stewart.
He must have my
The
sure, right?
persons that we hire and the persons that we hired, and if a person comes in on a contract, as was the case with Mr. Safri, it would obviously be that he came in with the support of the government and to bring solutions to the table. And then in other cases, we brought on a number of people straight from young people from the university. In cases of persons with disabilities, the few people that we hired were all persons with disabilities. Um, None of them expressing their political orientation directly to me. In relation to trying to get the solutions for elderly, we're working now with BART, not asking BART to express their political persuasion to us. In relation to children, we've had meetings with the Children's Committee, with Parados, again, not asking them for their position. When it came to these sex workers, we worked with Jabez House, not asking for their position on homelessness, on sex work or politics. So the solutions that we have taken have not encountered politics at all. In fact, it would be very difficult for anybody to say that we've brought a direct political orientation to the work of the ministry. It would be outright untrue, Mr. Stewart. And the other thing is, I don't want to dismiss the idea that people who come out of the university, young, trained social workers, because the ministry is a social work ministry. A number of the people who are hired in the ministry, as you know how the public service works, Stuart, a number of the people who come to the ministry to work, you don't even have a say in hiring them directly outside of consultancies. So a number of those persons, you can't tell their political orientation. And I feel that that comment, Mr. Stewart, is a little bit wicked, and also a little bit wicked, but a whole lot untrue.
Well, you need me to bring some examples as to
And look,
where
Kimar,
I'm seeing.
let me
Well, I
get
need
in.
you
I
to
know,
bring your
I know.
examples in relation. I need you to bring your examples, Stuart, in relation to the Ministry of People Empowerment.
Kimar, let me get in there because I heard a lot and I
Yeah,
wasn't able to respond to a few.
yeah. The
A
floor
lot
is
of what
yours.
he
Go ahead.
listen, I know politicians love to talk, and a lot of what you hear is
Well,
the
well, well,
hold on.
Yeah,
campaign
right. Give
managers
him his
too.
time.
Well,
Give him
that's
his time.
fine.
Give him his time. Give him
That's
his
fine. I
time.
was a campaign manager. I am not afraid to say that.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah,
so
have your time.
at the end of the day, a lot of these things is, you see, we start pretty in, and that's why I don't like it all, and that's why me and the ministers got we battles
I don't
because
battle with you.
we don't laugh.
Right.
But here's what:
Give him his
if
time
the minister
to
wanted
finish the
me to
points.
be in the
Yeah.
ministry advising on homelessness, I would be. That's the first thing I would say.
But you were, though. Don't give the impression that you
Was
weren't.
and
You
is,
were until.
but I'm not
Fellas,
going to
fellas,
out the
fellas.
reason. I'm not
Saffrey,
going to out the
Saffrey,
reason
Saffrey.
I'm
Give me
not
a
there. But
moment.
here
Give me
go.
a moment. Wait, give
If
me a
I
moment.
was sorry,
Saffrey, give me a
you
moment, please, please,
okay,
please. Right,
right.
right. Remember again, fellas, we uninterrupted. Unless you feel very strong that you need to interrupt, just give each other the courtesy of allowing the audience to hear you without the interruption, because the what we're talking, the people. Remember, we're here to give the people the information. So
Yeah,
please stick to the line and let's have a good clean show. So over to you, Safri, please.
no problem. If the minister wanted me there, will be there. Hands down, hands down. Because half of the things I'm hearing for me is more rhetoric than it is action. Action to do what I'm doing or action towards the homeless. And I not I as a person would never discredit anybody. The minister have been supportive in a lot of areas as it relates to homelessness in terms of giving the funds and in the initial beginning. But
Wait. No, no, no. Don't end there, Safri. I got. No, you tell me if you feel strongly. Don't just end there. Talk about the number of things that we've actually done. If you're going to say that you're not going to disparage
minister,
the ministry.
well,
You said if I feel strongly, Kimar. I just felt I had to
but,
help Kimar to
yeah, but
remember the
fine
things
enough.
we did together.
But here's what the minister have thrown the funds behind it. However, you see half of the things that the minister talk about at the latter, I don't know nothing about. No discussion, no nothing about. You see these hiring officers that would be now going out to the homeless, I know nothing about. Here's the problem with this. I've been trained 15 years internationally, not locally, because nobody here can train us because they never had the expertise here. These oftentimes these people will come out, they will go without training from the organization who is certified internationally in several different disciplines when it comes to homelessness. And that is the fundamental problem why some of these issues start big and fall. The resilience unit will have a component of homelessness, start big, they will fall because the same problem would occur in a lot of these things that thing. The key players are oftentimes invited to consultations for camera purposes, but not involved in decision making. I was a part of policy. I'm no longer a part of policy, so I can't tell you what the policy about. I be straightforward. I butter my own bread. You understand? So at the end of the day, if we are serious about it, sometimes who I like got who I don't like got to be at a table. Who I got noise with got to be at a table because these are the key individuals that are on the ground every single day making changes. Oftentimes you won't get position because of who you are. Your job or what you have credited, and I've told the minister this several times. I was never awarded in this country on a national award for the work we've been doing. I've been awarded by the Queen twice. I'm not asking for an accolade in Barbados. I'm just saying you're never honored in your own country because the minister could have credit to the many proposals that were sent in, whether or not we were first, second, third, or fourth to the homeless issues in Barbados, and that we still were never inclusive of some of these, or we see some of these started without us. If the minister is talking about data and statistics, there's nobody in Barbados to have more data and statistics, whether it be in order or form or fashion that the ministry want. Let the minister tell you when they did the pick count, I provided most of the data, 90% of the data that was given. So we provide and we give information. I have been collecting information on homelessness since 2009. So there's nothing that I don't give or nothing that I would not give to see homelessness. Why? I trying to get out of business. Because the work that we have been putting down in this country for over 15 years as a young man that started between 18 and 9, you understand? You have not
18
seen
and 19
between
in my
18 and
dream.
19 to now 35 have been tremendous, and the work the staff have been putting down. So we have been addressing homelessness, and what we want to see is just the solutions that we give to address homelessness, bring into place some of these policies, bring in not the money. If the ministry doesn't, I am not going to say until the ministry don't give us funds. I'm talking about solutions to move because I have two ladies called me today, both pregnant, both coming into the shelter, pregnant. I had a gentleman outside that was shot and he's paralyzed. National Disability Unit, we were on the phone with them all day to try to get this person in a home because we are not the person can't go up steps. We're not disability friendly to some extent. These are solutions that I would like to see that we can move forward. How do we address this? How do we provide housing? How do we provide solution? How do we give back? How do we make homelessness better for the people? Because at the rate the people are coming on the street, the ministers, I can't say enough, but I am up 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock addressing homelessness. I'm addressing people that are coming, whether the police bringing them, immigration bringing them, the MPs are sending them, whoever. So what I would like to see is that we address that. The amount of women and children, there is sufficient data to tell me, and even probably without data, that there is a need to remove children and females from a shelter like ours because of the need, not safety, but for the need for recreational space and therapy to get them back. Because I have children that go to school from the shelter. That's not nice. It is the most safest place because there's no other female shelter other than your battered women in Barbados. So I want to be able to see a shelter for women. I don't need data to tell me that I will feel really bad that if my wife out there with children that she going into a shelter, but they're safe for now. But I'm just saying long term, these are some of the solutions, even as it relates to the national task force committee. I don't know what the minister probably changing the name now to lay claim. But at the end of the day, these things have to be addressed seriously. So I would like to see the solution. I'm not, you know, I agree to the minister coming on the space. That's fine, and he can share whatever you want to share. But I would have hoped that we could see solution, and the ministry must not only look at telling the public that, oh, we give Saffrey this, but we are saying, okay, on top of the money, find down the minister, but let's get to the table with the stakeholders. Let's have and not act in a way like if you are kicking us out or playing down the work that we've done. That is not what I want to see. What I want to see is serious solution. I care more about the homeless and about the community being helped. I said it to the minister, and I end with this. I am not sitting on committees with people who do not have any knowledge or understanding of the space that we are in. I don't care to be chair. I don't care to be president of any committee. I'm just saying the key players must be people. And if you have discipline outside, because I know that there are some people that have discipline that has nothing to do with homelessness, but they can add. That is what I would like to see.
So, Mr. Stewart, I have heard Saffrey. I mean, he's saying the same thing over and over, and I don't disagree with him. I don't think that any of us would want to see anything other than solutions. The questions that have to be asked and answered are: how do we arrive at those solutions, and what is the best way? Now, the fact that we've supported the alliance is only but one. The fact that we've created an institution in the ministry to help address homelessness is also only but one. The fact that we've done the started the data and done all the necessary research again is also one. I'm just saying that there are a number of solutions. The task force that we will be creating, the committee that we've created, also one. But there are going to be a number of solutions, a number of roads to this solution. The other thing is, if we are being honest, the solutions to homelessness do not lie in the Ministry of People Empowerment, and they do not lie in the Alliance to End Homelessness. It is a lot of these things are mental health, as you said, Mr. Stewart. They're economic issues. There are much wider issues that we have to address from the core on the ground up. If we're going to have a mature, serious conversation, we have to have a serious conversation in Barbados around health, around educate health being regular health, mental health, around education, around our capacity to be able to support one another as family, as communities. There was a point in time where you had community groups. You no longer have those things. You had much more activities for people to play, to have sources to have release for their anger and so on. Community groups, football, sporting groups. If we're going to have a serious conversation around homelessness, this is the conversation that we need to be able to have. By the time somebody gets to Saffrey, they're already in trouble. By the time a
Yeah.
person comes to my ministry, they are already in trouble. If you want to have a serious conversation, it has to be how do we prevent those people from getting there in the first place? That is why I talk about the preventative element. And then the other component would be now that a person is already there, how do we help them to make sure that their stay in homelessness is as brief as possible? Somebody asked, what are the statistics on homelessness? The point in time count I don't have in front of me, but it was 200 and something, I think, at the time when we did the point in time count. But I would not use that because that was just one count. And I said for us to have a proper count, you need to do it, in my opinion, at least about 4 times so that you can get an average 4 times at different times in the year, at different times in the day. So some in the day, some in the evening, some at the night, some in the early morning, to be able to get a proper mean and then use that as an average. But that is what the point in time count showed us. I think it was just 200 and something. It wasn't a lot. But to say that there are 200 something people in Barbados
But,
who are homeless may not necessarily be accurate.
but let me ask a question here. Um, I follow the statement that you made about welfare and a
Mhm.
massive jump in welfare numbers. Now, to what extent, let's just, for example, if the government is unable to provide welfare tomorrow, to what extent would that impact on homelessness in the country? I know that times are getting hard economically all around the world, and governments, not just the government of Barbados, will be having a hard time providing social programs as we traditionally did, and
Mhm.
specifically asking about welfare. And just following your comment about that jump in welfare numbers, how are we managing uh, the increase in welfare numbers, and what
Well, let's
be
be
able to
accurate about. All right, I understand. Well, let's be accurate about what I said, Kimar. There was a jump, Stuart. There was an increase in COVID and immediately post COVID, but those numbers have petered out. In fact, we've actually gone back to pre COVID numbers. If you look at what the number of persons who are receiving assistance from the department, they're actually back around pretty much around pre COVID numbers or very close to, so that we're not seeing a rise in COVID. We saw, a rise in welfare requests. We saw that, as you would expect. Many people lost their jobs and were displaced and so on during COVID. But now we're seeing a petering out as the economy expands. A number of people have gone back to work. A number of people are have gone and done government training and are now in programs and so on and so forth. So we're seeing that. To me, the bigger point is that we have to be able to offer a comprehensive response. The challenge with welfare, and this is nothing to do with this Barbados party government, this has been a welfare problem. A problem in terms of our response to people who needed social assistance. It would be that you go and you receive a small stipend, a very small amount of funds, and that those funds would not be enough to take you out of poverty, but they would not be enough either to change your circumstances, but you might be able to get a food. Then that poverty is passed on from that generation to the next generation, and it continues. I mean, for years, and I'm talking now as a person who was manager of childcare in the early 2000s. This is nothing new. This is the years. In order for us to be able to break the cycle of poverty, and I'm talking about serious social policy, in order for us to be able to break the cycle of poverty, it cannot be a welfare thing alone. Welfare was designed to do one thing, which was to support people by giving them a basic amount of financing to be able to eat or to pay a bill or so on. That is not the solution. We've offered in the One Family program, and also by amalgamating now, as you know, we're about to amalgamate Welfare, National Assistance Board, Childcare Board, and Disabilities Unit into one unit with a comprehensive computer system called Pulse that allows a person to go to one place, a one-stop shop. When you visit that one-stop shop, you have in your communities, because there are going to be 21 centers. When a person walks in, they don't know where it is that the person is coming. So the person's business is, first of all, confidential, but that the entire family is treated. So that instead of, if you come with a disability, instead of you just getting a little something for disabilities, no, we ask, what is the situation with the other children in the house? What is the situation with the older people? And you treat the entirety of the problem. Now, by having an entire family intervention, what you do is that you treat the problem at the core. And then as part of the amalgamated unit, we have a transformative services, which the only job of that unit is to take the same people who are in poverty or persons who might be homeless and train them up, give them the mental support that they need, because a lot of them need mental support, put them in a position where they can work and make sure that they have jobs. Because the other thing is, Kemar, Stuart, you can't just think about the welfare numbers. It is because the welfare numbers might decline, and it might be that a lot of those persons have gone on for jobs. Welfare numbers might increase, and it could be that there could be a shock, as we had with ELSA or we had with COVID. So the numbers alone do not tell the story. That is why you have to talk to the recipients. About 2 years ago, UE, not the ministry, Dr. Devonish did a study of the welfare department. He did a survey of the recipients and asked them, what do you feel about welfare? And that survey said that, believe it or not, 60-something persons were satisfied with the treatment that they received from welfare. 60-something persons, 60-something% of the persons.
Oh.
So I'm just saying that sometimes you might hear things, and unless Dr. Devonish, his work is flawed, and as you know, Dr. Devonish is a professional, but I do think that there's still some things we have to be able to do. I've said to welfare, and I've said to all the social service agencies, we have to watch the way we treat people. If a person is down and out and they go to welfare, or they go to Kemar, or they go to Seroptimus, or they go to any place, and they don't feel that they're treated with dignity, then that compounds our social problems. People will show up at agencies angry. People might show up at agencies untidy. And so the aim to be able to deal with this work in terms of being able to address poverty is to have that holistic intervention. But you also have to appreciate that we have to be able to create jobs. And I'm happy to see that the economy is opening, that there are more jobs being created. In fact, this is the most training that has been offered to welfare recipients. I just came from, they did it today, but also yesterday. We had a room, and I mean about well over 100 persons who are already on welfare receiving training, and after the training, being put in positions to be able to find work. And I think those are the kind of real life solutions that we have to put the country in a position to say that Barbados is progressing. And I'm saying this now not as a minister, but as somebody who was trained in policy, as a community worker for most of my life. I'm very interested in making real solutions. At some point in time, I don't know when, at some point in time, we won't be the government. And when whoever assumes the reins of government, I would hope that they take the same holistic intervention, because traditionally, every government before us has done the same thing. Welfare, you go to welfare, you get $50, you get $100. Disabilities, you go, you get a prosthesis. But the overall problems are not being treated. And that to me is the real approach and the real solution to dealing with what you call the welfare. But for me, it is bigger than welfare, just the persons who are vulnerable and in need.
Keep on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Minister. I need to have you back on the show again for an individual segment next time, because while we enjoy the banter, and you got to thank Mr. Saffrey for this one. It was his interview, his program, and through our camaraderie, and I'm very glad to have you as a SMS alma mater as well. I hope you went to Glow Sports recently. I wasn't
No,
able to make
yeah,
it.
I wanted to go gloves first, but unfortunately, I wasn't in the country. I missed it.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go, but I usually go, and I tend to celebrate uh, our alma mater. Um, I say the best school in Barbados. And they say not supposed to rank schools, but I'm ranking schools today.
Yeah, Barbados it's a good school. Let me ask Mr. Saffrey before he leaves. Saffrey, you and I need to have a conversation. I have heard you on on this program. You want solutions. I want solutions. I will call you again tomorrow. You know my offer, and hopefully you sleep on it. I'm not going to offer you on the radio. Sleep on it. Let us talk tomorrow, because at the end of the day, it makes no difference. There's no point in me trying to win a call-in program when it is that you and I claim to be interested in the same thing. So I will call you tomorrow, sir. Mr. Stewart, you have a wonderful evening.
Yes, well, thank you very much, Minister Kerr Humphrey, for coming on. This was really unexpected, but we give thanks for coming and making your comments. Uh, we really need to have another conversation with you, an individual conversation where we could allow you to express yourself um, more relaxed, where you're not out in the community doing
Yeah,
the
yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
work.
yeah. You catch me at a
Um,
bad time, but I
yeah,
thought it was important.
yeah. I guess the people of St. Michael South are very happy to have you in the community doing the work. Um, I will say this: you're one of the few ministers or MPs that I see that stays out there in the community, doing the work of the community. So we congratulate you for that, and we say thank you to you again for taking time with your busy schedule to sign on to Alternate Views. We are leaving here much richer in terms of conversation than before. But again, please take up our invitation to come on. Just let us know. Not next week. Next week is booked. So anytime in May.
No, I will come on after the estimates. But then you'll probably have a lot more questions for me.
Yes, yes. But thank you very, very, very much for coming on.
Okay, and
So have
sorry,
a good
Mr.
night to you.
Saffrey, know that this was supposed to be your time. You may have to come back and do a second show.
I'm good. I always have platforms, so I'm good.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Kimars, both.
Yes. All right. Thank you to you, sir. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Mr. Saffrey, there you have it from Minister Kerr Humphrey. That was quite unexpected, but it left the conversation much richer, and
Yeah.
it opened a lot of doors for conversation. We do have to give you back your time that was taken, so we may go a little bit
Yeah, I can
over.
answer some of the questions because I know people have some questions that were in the comments. So I'll be happy to answer some for them.
Yes. So let me just say good night again to the viewers. Tonight was hot and interesting.
But be glad that
uh,
we could get the ministers out. I believe that Kemar they need not only to take part after we as um, social advocate are speaking, but to come when they're invited. Because I don't want them to come just because something is being said, but I want them to take opportunities when you offer them or when the platform is good.
yeah, yeah. But we do it non-political. Alternative views is not political. I know I have political leanings. We don't hide that, but we try to keep our professional outlook as it relates to. I just using a little bit of words for the Mr. Facilitating persons of different persuasion. It doesn't matter what political persuasion you are, but
Yeah.
we look at how we could develop ideas, have conversations, look at solutions for
Mhm.
the betterment of Barbados. And this evening, we were focusing on your professional background, which is indeed uh, homelessness, right?
Yeah.
And I love the point that you made that you are not interested in serving on a committee with others who do not. I have this thing about square pegs
Mhm.
and round holes, right? So I personally will not take a position I have no background in, no experience in,
It-
just because I want to be in the do or because I want to appease a minister or appease anybody else. I recently had a fracas with the leadership of uh, an organization
mhm.
and asking me to take on responsibilities and duties that I had no idea about. And I promised myself, and I think I made this point on a show that we were on with Peter Wickham when we were at CBC, that I believe that persons who are interested in serving in this country, you don't have to have a degree. It's not about a degree. It is about experience. It is about knowledge. It's about having an idea how to practically implement
Mhm.
solutions, because we got a lot of people who talk fancy, who talk pretty, who have a million degrees, right? But they
Yeah.
can't get the job done.
And,
So
and that's often the challenge. We are on the ground, and I am not one. I don't care how much money governments give me. I've rallied through Dems, I've rallied through Bs. My thing is, nobody don't pay me hush money. The money that is given to the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness, and it's credited to the clients that we serve. But I've mentioned this, and I agree with you. We must consider. I'm not for, as I said, there are people with disciplines that can help homelessness. There are people that are not in homelessness but are psychologists, psychiatrists, nurses, and doctors, and that is fine. But when you look at the key players, especially when we talk about committees, and I'm not on any government committee, and I choose not to be on any, because my thing is about impact, not about 120 a month and sitting down and arguing across the table and getting nothing done. I get things done with my staff and when we go on the road every single day and deal with the homeless people. When we go from St. Lucie to Christchurch and deal with homelessness. And that has to be the driving force with anybody that decide to come in my corner. Because at 18 years old, I took on a task, and at the same time, I've been still doing it consistently. And we need to then push. It is a collective approach that we can get a number of people on committees doing the job. But I've served on committees enough to see that a lot of them are more talk shop than doing anything. And that is why I said, let's make sure not only for this particular committee, but across the board, bring people to be able to serve in these areas that have expertise or have assistant expertise to be able to bring forward the issue with homelessness, right? So I am open to people. I'm open to working with people, but we must be able to seriously look at what we are doing when we think. And for a matter such as homelessness is your new LGBT. It is your new HIV/AIDS. You understand? Because it is more prevalent now than before. COVID speeded up by 10 years. So you're seeing more and more and more people on the road. You all are not privy to stories because we can't share any and everybody's story. You're not privy to the amount of people. I have supporting data to tell you how much people come per night. I can sit down here from my phone and tell you how much people come for the week. So that's my thing is, how do we address? And it cannot be from a slow approach. I remember years ago, I was afforded to be in open conversations, sitting on different UN and IADB boards, and when HIV was forefront, everybody was on the show. Boom, 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 boom. When LGBT was there, HIV was there, LGBT, sorry, everybody was on top of it, and it was, they were getting solutions. I think that we are still moving up way, 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 way bit too slow in addressing this. Because contrary to all of the futuristic thing that the minister spoke about, people suffering now. So where do we get a serious approach? No, not money. Let me get it again. Not money, because it's not the only solution. But where do we get a quick solution that could buffer housing solution by giving the same resilience unit that need to fly like yesterday. Right? Because they got people becoming homeless? No. You understand? The welfare, housing solution, that need to be redefined or brought back to the table as it relates to the length it takes to pay people to rent houses. So when you hear a man say, okay, 3 months, and he can't wait 3 months because he got to pay the bank month by month, that's the problem. How do we knock off some of that to be able to give people, you understand, knock off some of those serious prerequisite for people renting houses to be able to give people the comfort that they could get somewhere to stay? How do we feed the hungry? Where there isn't a national food bank set up to feed the hungry. You understand? Because most people think that every feeding on the street is for homeless. No, because we are buffering that as well by feeding people that are coming and having hard times. So there need to be quick fix solution, not policy and legislation and all that talk about data and statistics. Those things cannot fix the situation now, because if we had proper data and we had proper statistics, Kemar, we would have catch this here 5-10 years ago to know that this is the issue that we can got today. You get where I'm coming from? So you can't wait till you in the midst of a fire and say, well, look, data will go prove to me that water is out for you. So burn until the water come. It cannot be the answer to it cannot be the solution to the issue that we have.
Well, very interesting perspective. It's a little bit in awe of all that has happened on the show so far. Um, I want to segue to the audience now, because quite a bit of chat is happening
Yeah,
over. Yeah,
people want some of the statistics, Kemar, if I can give. About 5 years ago, I would have mentioned coming on that the homeless was between 250 to 300 people living on the streets at any given point. That was coming from the data. Most of the homeless came from Christchurch, St. Michael, and St. George. Those were where the most homeless people was coming from in terms of their original address, right? We made the claim that there were 250 to 300 people, and this was done based on people living on the street, people living in institutions such as the prison, psychiatric hospital, or QEH, or the Sacklight Gallop shelter. So those are just giving people data because people begging for the data. So those were the numbers that we saw. When the government, bear in mind, we initiated the point in time count, but when the government came on, they had the funds, so they could have done the point in time count. We didn't mind, it's not here nor there. We then gave away to the government doing the point in time count, facilitated them with information, including where every single homeless person was that we knew about, at which location, and where. That is why they were able to go with the numbers. When we did that, they came back with between 215 to 217 persons living on the street at that time. So this is the numbers. The minister should have remembered that, because the numbers were between the same numbers we were quoted, which means it was shy of about 80 people that, or 90 people that we would have predicted on the street, correct? But because the point in time count was done badly in terms of the timing, as I said, the point in time count was done at 8 o'clock Christmas, on the day of cricket, during the whole cricket World Cup, and the timing was poor. So you did not get the data. You need to go to at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock when people laying down. I took part in the point in time count. My staff did, because we wanted to give guidance and help wherever we can, or where we could. So I'm just saying the data was there. On average now, between from the time the shelter started in 2019, just on the 2nd of January 2019. Remember, the shelter was not always there. We have more than 700 people that would have passed through the shelter between that period of 2019 until now. So you can see the males are higher than the females. However, females now, I have on excess of about 10 to 12 females right now in the shelter, on an average of about, you will get on average at a night about 40 plus men. And the reason I gave earlier, because some people want to stay on the street, some people don't fit for purpose on the street, and there's a lot of things that, like rules, people don't want to follow rules, people don't want to follow guidelines, the people are not taking their medication. So some of these things are prohibiting them, and that is why I call for interagency relationship that will support people getting mental health care because Barbados do not, if I stand corrected, but Barbados do not have a quarterway, any quarterway houses anymore. They only have one halfway facility at the psychiatry. We used to have about 3 or 4 quarterway houses, but there's no more. So I just wanted to give some data to support, so that people can see where we're going with this here.
Yes. Well, let's do some advertising. Just hold your points, don't lose your points. But
Yeah.
we just want to remind the audience that we are on Alternate Views tonight. We are at 220 persons. So we want to
Oh,
thank all of those persons for coming on this evening. Uh, oh, right. So we wanted to thank all of those persons for coming on this evening. Thank you, Mr. Saffrey, again for coming on and sharing your perspectives. Uh, we want to thank the alternate viewers for tuning on. Just to say good evening to some of them. We have Anika Hope. We have Simone Daniel. Thank you for coming on. We have V. Hoy. Tyrone Nurse again. Richard McGarry, Chester Fields, Diana Seeley, Pete Ware, Tony Paris. That seems to be Hasbro. Saying brilliant, Mr. Saffrey. Pedro Gemma, Oswald Newton. Good night to Joseph Cadogan. Good night to you again, Gail Biz. Uh, Calvin McKenzie, welcome to the show. And again, Sir Alfred Benjamin, Drew Drop Waldron, welcome to the show, Mr. Waldron. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your questions. Sean Cool. We have social activist, Mr. Winston Clark, um, who's out there on the marches with us, and he's in the community doing his thing as well. After today, Mr. Clark had to highlight a serious situation of poverty happening in one of our communities where a lady was living in abject squalor. I had my time recently where I highlighted an issue of a lady living in a galvanized hut. So there are levels and cases in Barbados where abject poverty is high, and you're seeing those two instances, the one that I raised and the one that Mr. Clark raised, where the issue was women, two women living in these type of circumstances. So before the minister went off, I wanted to ask him, but it slipped me. He made a comment about rent controls, and I
mm.
saw some person in the comments as well asking about rent controls. Um, I wanted to ask him how practical is rent control, because in the city of Bridgetown, um, that happens in its majority, where I could be, well, right now I am in Bridgetown, and if I go outside, uh, I could see a house with about close to 40 people living in this house, right? Where people rent rooms, as you said, and you have a serious overcrowding in these facilities in the name of money, right? So how would you be able to tackle landlords who are taking advantage of the system? If you say, oh, what is an adequate space? What is an adequate size room? Uh, how what does the law say about shared facilities and shared accommodations? So maybe we could have some
Keep I can answer somewhat of that. There is a landlord and tenant agreement act in Barbados that need to be revamped.
revamp. Yes.
But here's what I'm not answering on the minutes. I'm answering from based on my profession. And yes, Chester, I have male social workers, and psychologists and psychiatrists. The thing with rental, there's something called the underground rental market in Barbados. Underground rental market would be that $60 room per hour. It would be that 120. Well, sorry, two. It used to be 150. Now some people rent it as much as 225, 250 a room. You know, if Bajans, yes, I agree to you, Minister, there need to be a lot of training in terms of financial literacy and things. People could get a better house at $1,200. Me and you, Kemar, could buddy up and get a house at 15. You understand? And that'd be half and half. The average man believe because you break it down. Years ago, they used to sell you things at $5. And you'll hear Bajan Holland, man, they can't get a dollar off saying off. So they said that the Indian community started to sell things at $4.99. So Bajan thought that the $4.99 or the $4.95 or the $4.98 was a low already. So don't let me ask for that off. So that's where you always see people use it. when you with that market, although the rooms and the facilities are not the best of condition, is what is keeping people off the streets in Barbados. That market is what is keeping people off the streets of Barbados currently. Because that 170 and that 220 is not unknown to government, it's not unknown to nobody. Everybody know about the communities that rent these things, rent these houses at these prices. But it's what's keeping people off the street, because the average man could go and do a show in town, go and do some late trade and be able to pay that money. But the conditions are not the best. You understand? And until we can get the I hear somebody reference it as the housing, the landlord tenant act, then we can have the I think it's being done to some degree. The welfare officers or the same resilient unit that the minister is now claiming to set up, to go there and be able to facilitate by looking at the condition of the house and determining if it is a condition livable. So you see, when we go back to Kemar about solutions, I cannot for once sit down in this peak season and watch a politician come and tell me about future plan, because you can know by saying that legislations, policies, things like that take years, not days, years, and after that they still gotta go to the Governor General to get final signature. You understand? And that could take another set of time, right? So at the end of the day, we need to have quick fix solution, and that is why we give the housing, the shelter first, the homeless committee, the national task force committee that we suggested to the minister, and we write the paper to him, the emergency housing solution plan. All of this is what we suggested to basically deal with these things. Everything that you see now has a homeless component. Somebody with LGBT ain't far from being homeless. HIV, disabilities, pregnant, all of these things, you understand? And we have to fight tooth and nail with interagencies to get these people help. I have a lady on the street pregnant with a wheelchair. I can't deal with a lady pregnant with a wheelchair, so she needs and has a disability at the same time. You have to ask yourself now, where does the National Disability Unit play a role? If you have somebody on the street that is elderly and cannot move, where is the National Assistance Board? If you have somebody in the street with a mental health issue, but shacking out on the street in Bajan dialect, I had a guy came, just going through town, mad as they call it, going through town and ring a 2x4 into the glass of the organization and broke it. But we made an appeal that this guy, couple days before that people with mental health issues that pose a threat to themselves and society need to be taken off the street. Rather than scoff at it, it should have been something that take into consideration, because the mechanism for people that are mental health is that there's limited access to them getting repeat medication. Why? They're not going to turn up at this Winter Scott. They're not going Black Rock. But we gave the solution. Let them come by us. We have a fully functioning clinic. Send him the health nurse once a week, and we will deal with that. So what I'm saying is, there are solutions that we are giving. Is it falling on deaf ear? Is it that you need? I hear the minister reference it when he talked about professor thing. He's a professional. What are you calling me then? A non-professional? When you hear you talking about people that got degrees, does it take a degree to understand and see that on top of having, well, I don't have any degrees, sorry, minister, but I have 15 years experience. You understand? I have 15 years experience. Where do you take that experience? And not only from advocate like myself, but from advocate in different areas, and use that to the best of, take advantage of us then, and use that to deal with the situation. Don't come to me with bullcrap talk about what we plan to do or thing, because at the end of the day, the people coming at my door are knocking. So how do we address them if all the agencies do not play hand in hand to address the situation? It cannot just be talk about things, not for current situation. Let's deal with current situation, and let's then let's train the ministry staff, on homelessness. Let's retool and reshape the whole welfare system and the whole system of how we look at social people that are vulnerable. And let's go again, because right now we are missing the ball, and money ain't the solution, only solution to fixing a lot of the problems. The solution is agencies working together and creating a national social network service that initiates every time somebody falls in terms of homelessness or whatever other situation in Barbados.
Yeah, well, now that you say that, we have people here saying maybe you need the prime minister because these ministers don't seem to have any clout. You're at liberty to say if the prime minister has offered you assistance in terms of ensuring the plight of homelessness is looked at in a serious way.
I've met with the prime minister on homelessness several times, and this is my thing. I do not believe that the prime minister needs to be inundated with things that can be fixed by line ministers. Because then if we take away the prime minister on every social or every medical or every other issue, because we know she has the ability to, then we're going to overwhelm her. I believe that when she puts these ministers in place, and we could see from the Paris Speaks and other things, the prime minister said, go meet with this body, go talk with that body, go and sit down with that body. And I believe that that is the approach to go, to send them to the supporting ministers to be able to do the work. Again, if the ministers can't do the work, then move them. That is where I believe that the prime minister could probably pull she power and say, well, move. Well, you ain't doing nothing. But I don't believe we can overwhelm the prime minister with every situation. She's met with me. She's spoken with me. I've written her. We've had dialogue. We've had meetings. And she has been supportive. Obviously, for us to get the 250 additional, she would have had to pass it. You understand? It would have to go before her. It would have to go before the Prime Minister Santia Bradshaw to be able to support us. So I believe that the line ministers, whatever ministry, not just pointing at Minister of Comfrey, but whoever minister it is, needs to take serious responsibility. And I believe that a minister should have an advisor in every aspect of his ministry. I was a consultant in the ministry. But if I'm in a ministry giving you information and supporting you with data and supporting you with whatever, and I'm not seeing anything taken to action, or the minister have a different persuasion as to why I'm there, then I left. Because I'm giving my professional expertise. If the minister saying, okay, 10 people don't want to work with you, Saffrey, well, let me leave. Don't let me create the problem. But I can guarantee you the 10 people that you keep ain't going to address homelessness, ain't going to address poverty. If I bring proposal to you, Kemar, and I say there's a way that I can help with poverty in Barbados, but I'm setting up this, I may be able to make some money from it as Kemar Saffrey because I'm giving a professional expertise, not homelessness, not Kemar Saffrey, the president of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness, Kemar Saffrey, the consultant who consults in different countries, both locally and internationally, to help with homelessness. So if I bring you up, you say, well, look, man, we just give you money to deal with homelessness. We can't pay you to solve it too. I said, but when you want a doctor, do you go at bar and see a lawyer as the head of bar? Do you go at the legal fraternity and see a doctor as the head of the legal fraternity? Or do you see the people that are respected people in the profession? So what I'm saying is, if I come to you as a professional, Kemar, and say, listen, I am the leading person and I can guide you. Here's my track record. And you tell yourself, man, I give you 250 and still pay you the same thing, then I guess you're missing the ball as it relates to my expertise in the field. So then go and look for an inexperienced person and see if you don't tarry longer in the field than you have been for years. You understand? Because we have fixed the homeless situation by a long shot in Barbados without, at the time, government support or input at all. You understand? Nobody in Barbados is going to sit down and work for free. I cannot go in the supermarket. Yes, I may be known and popular or whatever, but I can't go in popular and say, my name is Kemar Saffrey, I want a bag of groceries. I must be paid for my expertise because I'm sitting down helping you write policy paper. I'm sitting down helping you write this and helping you write that. So if I'm helping you write all of that, will you come out now as a minister, big and bold, or even on this show, trying to take credit for everything somebody do, but you ain't want to be able to pay the person for the expertise? No, you're paying friends and consultants. You could also pay for the work. You understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah, well, speaking of compensation,
Mm-hmm.
um, I guess I should ask. I want to ask personal information, but we should ask if I wanted to apply at the shelter. Would it be a volunteer on a volunteer basis? Will it be paid for working at the shelter? How do you usually work that
We do
aspect?
have volunteers at the shelter, so you can volunteer if that's what you choose to do. We have counselors, we have nurses, we have doctors, all of those persons on call, and they get paid. The staff are paid. Now, I want Barbados to understand. I have more than what, probably 12 staff in at the shelter. None of them could go to the supermarket when the week come, Kemar, and say, well, I work at the homeless shelter, I want a bag of groceries. Let's be clear. The reason for the success of the shelter is because of staffing. Yes, there are volunteers that come along and assist. But if a man tell me today he ain't coming Saffrey, I come and work today, I come in to help today, I gotta go and look for a job because right now bus fare going up. Well, you could tell the person, the person is not going to be there. So when you got 10 or 15 or 20 clients turn out, you say, well, look, Jackie Leg not here today because she had to go look for a job. You are not doing anything. And that is the main failure for a lot of the charities in Barbados, because there are people working their professional job and still trying to give time to support social causes in Barbados. You get where I'm coming from? So I have fully paid, and part of the ministry subvention is to pay the staff. You know, and those staff travel yearly, not on any government budget. We are paid for by our international partner to come to different states and learn homelessness, and are then trained to be able to come back to Barbados. The success that we have had is because we are trained, and I'm not training Kemar, a volunteer today, and you tell me, well, boss, I can't work today. I can't help you again to start a job as an economist. I can't pay Minister Humphrey on a train Minister Humphrey. He said, well, I'm going to be a politician. You get where I'm coming from? So the staff that I have paid come to work every day to be able to help your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunt, your uncles. They come to work to help you. How do we recruit? The same application process. Some people have background in social fields. Some people are social workers. Some people have been working in different hospital, mental, and different areas, and can come to us with the expertise. Now, everybody don't have the expertise. I didn't have none when I start. I had my birth certificate. I come out of school with no CXCs. But what I did, because I had passion, I went on to training to be the professional I am today. So you can train people. So I won't say degree is the only way to in the organization. We can train you.
I have some further comments here coming in. I want to read uh, one or two of them. One of them was the economic perspective of homelessness, uh, looking at the comparison between urban communities and rural communities, basically the country and the town. And it looked at the village life, and it says here a village is a small settlement that typically consists of a few hundred people and is located in rural areas. It is usually surrounded by agricultural land and often has traditional close-knit communities. And villages generally have low population density and limited access to modern infrastructure and amenities. On the other hand, rural communities tend to refer to an area that has more dispersed settlements spread over a larger geographical area, like St. John. These communities are also often focused on agriculture and natural resource based economies. They have slightly higher population densities than villages, but still lack modern amenities found in urban areas. In contrast, an urban community refers to a densely populated area with significant economic growth and development, i.e., Bridgetown, Oyster, Spikestone, the town areas. And cities offer advanced services such as transportation systems, education institutions, healthcare facilities, shopping centers, recreational facilities, which make them popular among populations seeking job opportunities or better living standards. From an economic perspective, Villages rely on agriculture for income generation, while rural communities may have other industries like forestry or mining, extraction. Urban communities have diverse economies with various industries such as manufacturing, technology, finance, leading to increased job opportunities and higher wages.
Mhm.
From the social side, um, villages tend to be more close knit communities where everyone knows each other well, and residents often share strong bonds based on family ties or cultural traditions passed on through generations. And rural communities also value these traditions but may have relatively more diversity due to being more spread out than villages. And urban communities are often characterized by high levels of diversity due to migration from different places for work opportunities, which lead to multiculturalism. Being embedded within cities and villages usually follow traditional family structures where extended families live together. While nuclear families are common in both rural and urban settings. And it says here to end off that families in all three types of communities face unique challenges. Financial struggles might be more prevalent in villages due to limited economic opportunities, whereas isolation can be problematic for families living in remote regions or rural remote regions. And they struggle with the work life balance as they need to cope in fast paced lifestyles of the city. So, in conclusion, the definition of a village, a rural community, and an urban community are based on size, population density, economic activity, social structures. However, each will have different type of characteristics. Now, I observed that most persons who are homeless head for towns, right? They tend to socialize around the town areas,
Mm.
right? And based off the rationale and the analysis provided just now, I often wondered why most people who end up going on the homeless road tend to want to come to Bridgetown as opposed to finding a nice close knit community in the country where there's breadfruits, ackee, sugarcane, uh, everything in the lake. You could
Yeah.
give us some perspective on that.
Years ago, I would tell you that that would be key, Mark. I mean, you could have begged a man for a breadfruit years ago, or begged a man for a lime. Those things are even being sold. No, one lime is $1. You could have begged a man for a breadfruit. A breadfruit is $5. So you will find that even in rural communities, you don't see much people. Rural communities tend to have what you call community homeless person or village homeless man. But you ain't gonna find much. Those persons that are in communities, there's one persons in community in rural area, you will find that people are taking care of them. Family, friends, the neighborhood, they will take care of them. They won't live in any house, but they will get taken care of, or they may live in a old abandoned house. Most people come to the town because of the access to welfare, the access to services. They're about on average of about 8 feedings per day. So people come to town for the feed at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Then they got 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, something 7 o'clock feeding. And on average, you could get about 2 meals per 2 meals per feeding. So there's a lot of reason for being told. You could beg people. They are safe. Some people may think they're safer in Bridgetown because they may linger in numbers. Some people just stay because of the shed, especially around the bus terminal area. Used to be a drink and stay area, that Vinci town that they used to call it, or GT town. So there's a number of reasons for being in town, and sometimes too, people move from their area because if I up in that area and do this body something, so it's best I come away from the person. So you find that people will come down to town to be safer and to move away from family and the area so that they don't get themselves in trouble. And sometimes the stealing is there as well. And most people don't steal in areas that they're familiar with. Contrary to proper belief, they would steal the area, they would suss it out and then steal from it. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's very interesting. So so you come to town. Obviously, people are creatures of habits. Upon my observation of, I see most of the homeless people congregate around the Treasury building,
Mm.
right? I heard the government officials speaking about, and I saw they boarded up. You know that the Treasury building is also Ninja Man's. I can't call it permanent housing, but that's Ninja Man's housing,
Right.
right? Um, and you have a lot of people right now. As if you go there, we could see quite a few persons living under the Treasury building. Now, I often wondered when and if the government commercializes that building, um, what is the likely outcome? I guess they will find some place else to gather.
Let me find somewhere else to go.
Yeah, yeah,
Kimar,
yeah.
the issue is here is that we've made several proposals that look at people that are on the street of age. I believe people on the street of age over that probably 67 mark should be, they have, some of them have pension coming in. Some of them should be taken and put into the geriatric homes, or same Minister talk about Vauxhall homes and those other homes, that we may need to build more of those elderly care homes. That's why I support it. That we can put these persons in and take the funds from there. Because that's what the government do. They take their funds from their pension and help to support them, and that's good. The Treasury is not the hot spot for homelessness. It's the most visible spot. It is the most visible spot because we all walk to the Treasury to the left or to the right, so that's what we see. But on that, and it also encompasses the which is the Hero Square. And so because you can see that, because you walk past there so much, is what you would say that you think that that's a hot spot. But when you look at Louis Lake School, and when you look at the Louis Lake School, probably have about 20 persons, 30 persons, and then you go to Helipad that has another 15 or so. So those are really the hot spot. These are visible, but these people are creating, some of them are creating environmental issues, and that is where we need to address. Because not only Ninja Man creating the environmental issue, because if a man wants to go to the bathroom, he's going to the side of the board, and these environmental issues need to be dealt with. You have people out there with serious mental health that are not medicated for years, and so we need to have the community nurse going back into the communities in large number. We can't have one community health nurse. We have to have several that can go into the community. And as I said, we need to move the elderly off the street. The younger people that we are seeing, they're stemming from deviant behavior. They're stemming from joblessness. And a number of, some of them have rap sheets in terms of being ex-cons that can't get a job, and family never take them back since they came out of jail. And so they're bulking in numbers, and they're creating these spots between the helipad and the Louis Lynch and some other fields. So there are a number of issues that, as I said, when they call for social agencies, once the social agencies all play a critical role, then every agency can start to activate where the problem lay at their feet and be able to address it. Contrary to popular belief or what the minister would have mentioned, he thinks that people will come to our shelter and stay short term, but people are coming to our shelter and staying long term because because of their age, because of their drug addiction, because of their mental health issues, and so on and so forth. The other part that the minister would have mentioned is talking about that the 24-hour shelter would have made any difference in the people in the square. It would not make any difference in the people in the square if there's not programs to support that, or if there's not policy to support that, because the person still have a right or a choice not to use the shelter or to use the shelter. And oftentimes the rules of the shelter prohibit. Some people don't want to come in some people want to come in the shelter and not bid. And that cannot be so. Some people can't come in the shelter, as I said, mental health, and that can't be so. So every agency then needs to activate. And the faster other agencies have to work at the pace also of other agencies, private sector, or a social organization like ours. We don't have any bureaucracy, so we can work fast. It's just a decision. We can take any person or you not. If you go across to another agency, they're doing 5 papers, 10 assessment, and 20 documentation, and they're going up to the head, and every head my vacation, you're dead. So these are always prohibiting people from getting the assistance that they need, and we now need to move forward a little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have 4 solutions here on WhatsApp. I just wanted to read
Yeah, I can wrap
these
up with you
solutions.
shortly about 9:30, Kemar, if I can.
Yeah, 9:30, and we wrap up at 9:30.
All right, thank you.
We have 4 solutions here contributed, and it says here that the 4 solutions would be affordable housing initiatives, which is what you said, emergency housing solutions, which I agree with. But I also think we need to go much further as it relates to a proper housing policy for the country. I am not speaking about the whole project. I went into the whole project at length, and I explained to the public what I thought about the whole project. Right? So I'm not meaning that. Two, accessible mental health services. You spoke about that as well.
Yeah.
We are the only
And and,
halfway
and
house we
Kimar, you can
have.
add to bring back up the mental health board and the mental health committee need to speak more on mental health issues in Barbados. I really strongly believe that. There is a mental health committee I've heard, but I don't know anything about other than there's a committee.
Right. And this will be under the same ministry of
No, this is on the health.
or health.
Yeah, the
Right.
ministry, yeah, because psychiatric hospital falls under the health, not the people's empowerment.
Right. But that proves the point that you made about more cross
Correct.
agency collaboration. Uh, direct poverty reduction programs through education, job training, or financial assistance to help people from falling back into homelessness.
Mhm.
I think the minister say something to that effect where said that persons are being trained and XYZ whatever. And one thing that we didn't touch on that is being brought up here is domestic violence and the extent to which domestic violence plays in being homeless, right? So
Yeah.
adequate
Let me just,
support.
if I can just correct this, I think Vihoy, you are saying that you can't take government money and deny people entrance. You're not denying entrance. I cleared it up. I don't want to have to repeat again, but for your benefit, you're not denying people. The shelter cannot deal with somebody that is at a serious like Ninja Man. We can our Ahmed, our Bessie. We cannot deal with persons like this. We are not a mental health facility. We're a shelter. Let's say that you are right now homeless on the street and dying, and somebody stab you and you're bleeding out. Are you going to be brought to the shelter? No, you're going to be brought to a you're going to be brought to the hospital. So there's some things that we can do, and there's some things we cannot do. So that is where we call in for the interagency support, because I cannot take in somebody with a serious mental health issue like Ninja Man to do what. I don't have a mental health nurse on board 24 hours. And if I need to isolate him, I can't because I use dormitory stills. So just for your understanding. Go ahead, Skimar.
Right. Right, so just finishing off the comment here, it says that adequate funding for shelters, legal aid services, and support groups can help survivors escape abusive situations and provide them with the resources to rebuild their lives without fear of becoming homeless. I know
Mhm.
that fire victims as well in Barbados usually struggle for a very long time to get government assistance. I personally know of at least 3 or 4 fires happening in the city of Bridgetown specifically, where I would have personally attended those fires and personally interacted with the persons whose houses have burnt down. And
Mhm.
today, none, well, at least one of the houses were rebuilt without any assistance from government. And all of the other instances, there were no assistance offered to the persons whose houses burned down. Now, let's just say
Yeah.
that these persons does not they not have a safety net, whereas in they were working or could they had family members to stay at. You would have had 3 families now homeless on the
Mhm.
street without assistance. And you made the point that it's okay to put your house up for government program, but 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 months passing and the government is not paying you as a landlord. So how sustainable or feasible is that uh to have to want to encourage persons who own property to put their properties up on government programs when you can't even get paid simply on time?
On time. Yeah, that is the question. So that is what we need to look at. They say this is where we need to pick down the social welfare system of Barbados and go again, because we need to bring not just me but key players at the door, and be able to have it. Yeah, Vihor, yes, I understand your position. Thank you. Um, so we have to be serious about certain things when it comes to the thing. I see comments. I don't want to clown around like Pedro Jamot just talking stupidness. If you're here to learn something, because at the end of the day, it's not about business is about a recurring decimal to anybody, but you are running a shelter to basically bring things to the forefront. If you think political or otherwise, then you thinking foolish to me, right? But at the end of the day, people, it calls for a collaborative approach to basically dealing with this. I do not want it to be said that homelessness is being fall at the feet of the Barbados Alliance and homelessness, and because we get money, we ain't supposed to be no homelessness in Barbados. If the money could have solved the issue of homelessness, clearly I could tell you this: then the government could easily keep that money and solve the issue. Correct? So if the government can't take the money and they have way more money and can't solve the issue, you really think the issue is money? And the issue have been calling for support in a lot of ways to deal with this issue. Kemar, the domestic abuse, and we do not deal with domestic abuse cases. Why? Because there's a domestic abuse shelter, and they already have the wherewithal to deal with women that have been domestically abused by men, and so they can deal with that. We have cases though of men that have been abused by women, and we deal with that element because there's no domestic abuse shelter for men. Um, the case of fire victim, we've had fire victim, we've had ELSA victims, we've had deportees, we've had people that can't be repatriated because they don't have funds to go back overseas. We have a lot of non-national, I'm talking about from Germany, and what we had Indian, we had black, we had white. So homelessness is not a respect of color, creed, or any other ways. It is about dealing with it head on to be able to solve the issue that we have right now in Barbados. So I welcome people like Pedro to go there and start your own shelter if you believe we can't do it, and see if it's best that he fix the problem than commenting foolishness or thing. But we do what we have to. We tried our best, and we welcome people to come in and partner with us and help us in any way to deal with it, because I would like to see another shelter, another part of the organization set up in Oystins and set up in Spice Town, so we can have satellite offices rather to deal with the issues around Barbados, because right now our main office is in Bridgetown, but we go on the road. But we would still like to have satellite offices. I'm not talking about another shelter, satellite offices that we can help the person.
Yeah. Well, good vision, sir. But we are actually now 2 minutes away from the end of the program. We had a very exciting show. I know most of the time was taken up with the interjection of the minister. The comments are really, really, really active tonight. So it seems that
it's good. I reading them and I take in notes, and I sorry I wasn't able to answer a lot of the questions. The minister has a tendency of the gift of gabbing, so I can't do nothing if I didn't answer. Yes, you can donate food and at the shelter. We're in Spring Street, Bridgetown, right? So if you want to, yeah, you know what foolishness, Joseph, and I'm talking.
Right. Just
stick
to
just very focused, right? So we could definitely connect if we need to, and those that want help, finally, and seriously could come and help. I'm open to that. Yeah. People could donate in food stuff at the shelter.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Saffrey, for coming on to the show. I had a really, really good show. This is our most populated show since we started.
I'm glad I could bring some songs, and thanks to the minister.
Yeah, we had some very controversial statements being made, but the show is here for that purpose. I think you would have made some comments earlier, speaking to ensuring that everything is above board in terms of the operations of the shelters. Any public space where people will come at you, people will want to know about you're giving, so they will want to know.
I just said, Kemar, we have our financials done every year, and we put in back corporate affairs. That is where it needs to go by law. And we give where we have to give. We do what we have to do. We have an accountant in office as well, and we make sure the government money is the board. Thank you. To those, we make sure the government money is contrary to idiotic talk or foolish antics because of political reasons or other reasons. Listen, I can tell you this: the organization does it work. The staff does it work. We come to work every day for the homeless, and if I had to go home tomorrow, I would go home with my head high, saying that I've helped more people in this country than a lot of people have. And I encourage people to go and help. Not just us, but go there and help somebody, everybody, somebody's in need that and just help and give. And if you want to join us, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to visit the office and knock on the door and say, look, I heard Mr. Saffrey on the show and I want to see if I can help or if I could give my support in any way. And we would think we want that support.
Yeah, well, Joseph Cadogan is saying that he tried reaching out to you, both you and the minister, but he was not successful. So, Joseph, I'm hoping you could take up that offer and
rather than bashing on the comment. I mean, yes, I am very busy. I can't speak for the minister, but I can speak for myself. I'm very busy. I do a lot. And if you don't hear me through one medium, don't bash me because you contact me. You didn't hear me. You understand? Come to the office and say, look, Mrs. Saffrey, heard you on the show. I trying to get through. You may have this. You understand? But bashing somebody doesn't make me want to meet with you tomorrow if he had to come to the office because why? You understand? So just tell me that here I haven't met with you. I can always keep it 100%. Come to me and I'll work with you if you need to work with. But make sure that when you come, as much as you want my motive to be clean and clear, make sure yours clean and clear and we will work together. I always try to keep it real.
Yes. Well, you heard it from Mr. Saffrey, uh, the president of the Barbados Alliance to End Homelessness. Um, you can see the show took an unexpected turn. We didn't expect to have the minister on the show, but it complemented the show as well.
I'll
Um,
be back, Kemar. I'll be
yeah,
back.
I certainly
Thank you.
learned a lot
Yeah.
tonight, and that is why we brought up the topic.
Mhm.
So I want to compliment Mr. Saffrey on that. I also want to thank the contributors to the show. I want to thank Mr. Walter Ed for the comments that he contributed to the show as well. And
Kemar, if I can say
I
sorry,
want
if I
to
can
thank,
say my if I, sorry, not the cross, if I can say my goodbyes and you could just take me off here so that I can go out to this other meeting. But I just want to say thank you to everyone. I appreciate you, I appreciate your comments. I learned a lot from you guys as well, based on what you have to say as a public. I'll take it into consideration. Kimar, as always, you could call me anytime. We back on the Beijing views just now too. So thanks for having me. Thanks for the show. I will be watching and keeping. So please, people, thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody. Thank you. Have a good night.
yes, thank you. You could sign off as you're ready, but thank you very much for coming on the show, Safri. I really enjoyed this show. This was a very excellent show. So we want to express gratitude to him for coming on. Now, next week promises to be a very interesting show. We have economist Carlos Ford coming on to the show. Uh, Next week is the estimates happening in Barbados. We'll be having Carlos Ford on to the program next week. Carlos Ford, as you know, is a Canadian-based economist who has been contributing to the public space as it relates to economic issues of Barbados. So we need to tune in next week again. The 243 of you that are on, I want to thank you all for signing in. I had a very good show. Don't forget to like and share. Send this live because it's a very interesting. I am completely surprised that we were able to get Government Minister Kurt Humphrey to come on to alternate views. You know, we must give ourselves a round of applause to be able to attract that level of audience. So we keep moving on and hoping that we can get some more government officials to publicly show themselves to face the scrutiny that the minister held himself up tonight. I enjoyed Mr. Safri's banter, not feeling intimidated by the presence of the minister. I was able to express his truth as it relates to what is happening in his space, i.e., tackling the homelessness uh, for the people of Barbados. So I saw some very interesting characters on the show tonight. I saw Paul Gibson. Welcome. Uh, I think Verla De Pisa was tuned on. I think Curtis Kiv was tuned on as well. Thank you guys for lending us your time to be here. Thank you, Joseph, again for giving your perspective as well. So next week we'll be having Carlos Ford, the economist, and the estimates is in the air, and we will have some very open discussion with Carlos as it relates to the Barbados economy, Caribbean economies, and world economies. We even touched on Canada, where Mr. Ford is based. So I want to encourage you all to tune in for next week. And also to remind Minister Humphrey that he promised us that he'd be back on alternate views after the presentation of the estimates. So we are leaving that challenge up there for him to come back on alternate views because the viewers definitely have some questions to ask Government Minister Kurt Humphrey, along with any other government minister who wants to come on Alternate Views. The invitation is there uh, for you. So thank you very much, viewers. Tune in next week. Carlos for Economist, February the 29th, 7 p.m. Don't forget to tune into the Marcia Weeks program tomorrow, Friday at 7 p.m. Promises to be a very interesting show yet again. Caswell Franklin, myself, Marcia Weeks, Ferdinand Nichols, Rose Carbon, along with the others. So tune in tomorrow on the Marcia Weeks show and tune in next week. Carlos for Economists on Alternate Views. So thank you very much, viewers, and have a good evening. And I will see you later. Tune in to Alternate Views, where we paint your roadmap for the future and the economic prosperity and social prosperity of Barbados. So thank you very much, my loving audience. Galbez, good night, Square 4, Tony Paris, Sayer, everyone. Thank you once more and have a good night.